I would like to call the regular meeting for the Village of Tinley Park Plan Commission to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Justice for all. Secretary, please take roll call.
Stanton?
Here.
Engel?
Here.
Manny?
Here.
Gatto?
Here.
Gaskell?
Here.
Aitchison?
Here.
Fielder? Vic?
Here.
Chairman Gray?
Here. A quorum is present. Staff, are there any communications at this time?
The only communication is we're going to be requesting to take the Racino Entertainment text amendment to be item 1 for tonight's meeting, and then the agenda will follow accordingly.
Okay, thank you. I also would like to make an announcement. This meeting will have an end at 10:15 p.m. If somebody's in the middle of speaking, we'll let them finish their say. If we have to continue the meeting to 2 weeks from now, we will do so. There's a couple issues. One of them is that there is a power outage that's going to occur roughly around 11 p.m. affecting this building. We don't all want to be in the dark. So thank you for your understanding in advance on this matter. With that said, let's move to the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 1st, 2019 meeting?
Motion.
Commissioner Gaskell, a second.
Second.
Commissioner Aitchison. All those in favor of approving the July 18th meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The first item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing to discuss a text amendment to incorporate a Racino Entertainment Complex use into the zoning code. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Engel,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Gatto. I have confirmation of the public notices being completed. So staff, could you please make your presentation at this time?
Thank you. With the recent new gaming bill passed by the state that is looking to support and enhance Illinois horse racing industry, the village and mayor and board have expressed an interest in entertaining the possibility of permitting a horse track in the community. And as part of that gaming application process, the village is looking to demonstrate this racetrack being a permitted use within the zoning code. We discussed that the zoning code district we're looking to make this a permitted use would be in the ORI zoning district, which is our office and restricted industrial district. In addition, we'd be looking to amend the Rich Township Entertainment Overlay District to also list a horse track as a permitted use. Since my memo went out for your packet, we did send a revised, updated staff report, which included a revision to the Racino Entertainment Complex definition. And here for us, we have our attorney, Patrick Conley, to further articulate the amendment to that definition.
Commissioner, or City Chairman, do I need to be sworn in? I think might as well.
Sure,
Process,
staff
yeah.
typically doesn't have to,
Yeah.
but
But
yeah.
since I'm presenting tonight, I'll
Do you
go ahead.
do you swear to tell the whole truth?
I do.
Nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. Thanks again for giving me some time tonight, and Kimberly and Paula for working with us. As I was up here a few weeks ago, again, this is sort of a new process that we're all going through with the state, and we sat down with Kimberly and her staff to revise this definition. We think at certain points and certain reports have, pun intended, put the cart before the horse a little bit. So we wanted our definition and to give this board a little clearer picture of exactly what's happening. And first and foremost, the application that our developers submitted, again, is before the Illinois Horse Racing Board, and this is about horse racing. Anything beside that, in addition to that, is simply not ripe right now. We believe it's, in fact, too speculative to even talk about that. If and when the Horse Racing Board were to grant the developers that we're speaking to such a license, those plans will then start to come into fruition. But even at that point, We do want to make it clear at this point that this definition, and I think the revised definition really does do that, makes it abundantly clear that this use that we're asking you to approve is the primary, the main, whichever you want to call it, is a horse race track. That's the intent of the bill that was passed by our state, and that's what, at this point, the village and the developers we're speaking to are interested in. It's about horse racing. So, as you can see here, we've made it that the primary use, no matter what else would to go in and around this, is about horse racing. So those uses would have to be ancillary and secondary, and again, at this point, far too speculative to even discuss at this point. This has to go step by step. And right now, the only step, and quite frankly, the most important step out of this process is the application that was filed for race dates, and that's all that was done. An application for race dates and the possibility to build a standard bred horse track at a location here in Tinley Park. So that's with the definition. We hope we've made clear for you guys tonight. That's all that's before you. Again, anything, even including the, if we are lucky, if our developers are lucky enough to get approved, you know, those plans, everything like that for the track, you know, that will come before you again. And also keep in mind, if we are to move forward, you know, there's many agreements that would need to be made, development agreements, property transfers, things like that. So I also want to make sure that it's clear that, you know, by approving this and then ultimately the board's approval of this horse racing type definition, you know, nobody's going to go start building out there tomorrow or anything like that. There's a, you know, this is the first step in many steps. But again, we hope this definition makes it clear that, again, this is about horse racing, and it's about the horse racing industry, and our developers are excited about it. We believe the industry is excited about it, they're passionate about it, and it's, you know, and it's driven passion here with your elected officials to get behind it. So this is our part in it, it's the developer's application, but we want to signify to that horse racing board that Tinley Park is behind it. I think that's it, Kimberly. I think that's pretty much it as far as what we're asking for tonight. So, any questions?
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Yes, if the commission has any questions, beginning with Commissioner Engel,
Done.
Commissioner Manny,
None.
Commissioner Vick,
No.
Commissioner Gatto,
No.
Commissioner Aitchison,
No.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Hey, one tiny question. A license for horse racing and stuff, is that specific to a particular kind of horse racing, or is that?
Yeah, this license and the application that was put in by our developers is for standard bred horse racing. It's interesting, I wish Mr. Fielder were here tonight. I know he's very educated in the horse racing world, but standard bred is the, yeah, I probably have the wrong word for it, but the buggy racing.
Oh, chariots.
Chariots, harness, yeah, there you go. So, but standard bred, I think, is the industry term, and the other is thoroughbred.
Yeah.
But for what was applied for by the development team we're speaking to, is that standard bred harness racing.
Okay, good. Commissioner Stanton.
What other racetracks are there in the area?
I believe all that's left in the entire state are Hawthorne in Stickney, Arlington up in Arlington Heights or Park, whichever it is, and I believe there's one downstate in Fairmont. And I believe most of those, if not all, are primarily thoroughbred racing. So there's a, I believe yeah, I believe there's, yeah, I don't think there's a primary harness track racing, and in fact, many of those have closed down. You know, Balmoral, Maywood, things like that, and you know, it's decimated that industry. And I think a part of this bill was to reinvigorate that industry, and that's where the main focus is.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Patrick. Thank you for your diligence in retooling the definition, and Commissioner Fielder is just running a little bit
Yeah,
behind, so
very good.
unfortunately, he isn't here to hear the
He's
presentation.
been a big help.
Yep.
So, thank you.
With that said, is there anybody in the audience wishing to testify on this item? Please come up and approach the lectern.
This is the first I'm hearing about a buggy racetrack in Tinley. Is it going to be something that we will be voting on? Or is it something that you'll be voting on? Who's going to decide? I'm horrified to have a racetrack here. As they said, that a lot of them have closed down. They're all in ugly areas. This is really Okay, can you answer me? Is it going to be voted on
I can answer.
by the people?
Sure.
Yeah. But there is no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no additional referendum, thank you, Shaw. There's no referendum planned in the law, but yes, absolutely, there will be public votes, there'll be public hearings, both by this plan commission, other commissions in the village, and ultimately the village board, so.
But so there will be a vote by the public,
the-
whether you,
There will not be, there's not intended, the law is not intending a separate referendum to the whole public, but again, public through their elected officials will vote.
so no then.
And miss, if I could get your name, and if you could,
Camille Tess.
Camille? Okay, and if you could just, this is after the fact, but I guess everybody who is wishing to testify tonight, if you could just raise your right hand. And do you swear to tell the truth? Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you for your comments, Camille. Commission, do you have any other further comments or discussion at this time on this item?
Mr. Chairman, still more time for public comment?
Absolutely. Mr. Shaw, please approach the lectern.
Knowing that there is a hard stop this evening and there's a lot of public hearings, I'll just keep it extremely brief. I would just like to express my support for the concept, what we know of it. And I think that if done correctly and tastefully, I think that this could be very positive for the community.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. And as Patrick mentioned, it's just like the very, very first initial step. So it's very preliminary and at the concept stage at this time. So, thank you. If there are no further questions or discussion, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Stanton, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. So I'm requesting a motion from the Plan Commission, well, there's no standards on the new text amendment for this. Yeah, could I get somebody to read the motion?
Staff report, I don't have it on the slide, so.
Sure. I'd like to consider a text amendment amending section 2.
One second, Commissioner Stanton, just, could I get a motion to close the public hearing first?
So moved.
We did that.
We did that.
Okay, so if you can make the motion.
Consider text-
Vote on the motion to close the public hearing, I apologize. Do a roll call, please.
Stanton,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. And now at this time, I request a motion from the planning commissioners.
Consider text amendments amending section 2.b definitions and section V.b scheduled regulations of the zoning ordinance to incorporate a Racino entertainment complex use. The purpose of this amendment is to add a definition and to modify the schedule of use regulations to allow a Racino entertainment complex in the office and restricted industrial district ORI as permitted use.
Okay, I hear a motion from Commissioner Stanton, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Can I have a roll call?
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Chairman Gray,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Gaskell.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay.
So we have a
thank you,
second
Patrick.
motion. Sorry, there's two motions with this one.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
At this time, I'd like to entertain the second motion to be made by the commission.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board approve text amendments to section V.D.3 Rich Township Entertainment and Tourism Overlay District of the Village of Tinley Park zoning ordinance as indicated in the staff's most recent staff report dated 8/15/2019. The proposed text amendment would amend paragraph A.3 uses to list a racino as a permitted principal in the overlay district.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Engel. Can I have a roll call?
Stanton,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Motion 2
Did I
passes.
get Manny? I don't think did I say Manny?
No.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Motion 2 passes for item 1. Okay, moving on to item 2. The second item on the agenda this evening is a continued public hearing at the request of Mr. James Vrew, authorized agent, on behalf of Park Oaks Commercial Condominium Association, the owner, for variations and site plan approval related to a 376-square-foot, one-story addition on the existing three-story Park Oaks building located at 17322 Oak Park Avenue. May I have a motion to open up the public hearing at this time?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Engel. Okay, staff?
This was a continued hearing from the August 1st meeting. There were some comments in favor of the request, noting that there was not much else that could be done with the space if there wasn't an addition to the building. But in addition, there were other comments noting that they were concerned about the one-story addition and how it looked on the streetscape and was not in compliance with some of the legacy code requirements. And so we were tasked to have the applicant go back, make some revisions. Here on the screen, he has made some revisions to the one-story addition. Notably, the main change is the roof line. And there was also some comments about setting back that building slightly. It was about, I think, 0.5 feet. Now it's approximately 2 feet setback to align more with the Wyman storefront next door to it. They did provide us with this rendering here. The roof parapet, as you see in your staff report, it does appear it may block the view from the 2 windows on the second floor of the residential unit. So there's some discussion that we can have on that and any concerns if we have anything with regarding that. The commission may wish to also further discuss this and have an opportunity for those unit owners potentially to comment on it. They didn't receive the revised drawings if they were notified, but nor have they contacted us. So that's the main discussion point. Here's where we started when we first discussed this addition. And here is a revision, kind of also incorporating the adjacent building next door. The third concern in regards to the building setback, it is addressed in the revised rendering, but they didn't have an opportunity to update the site plan or dimensions. So we would need to look at that down the road. But the revised dimensions of the addition are now 22 feet by 16 feet, giving it a 352 square foot size. And this changes the variation slightly for the commercial space depth. And that they've also added a door on the south side of the building that would open up into that alley. There was some comments about how this could be applied to other properties in downtown. While a full list was not compiled of properties that could make a similar single-story request with the same conditions, because it essentially could include every property in downtown that has existing patio space or additional property to build on. But some properties with some similar conditions that our staff member noted would be developments such as the Springfort Hall or the past Crack the Code building. Existing historic buildings such as Ed Joe's, Holstein's, Tehan's, and Mickey's could also be potential properties that could do similar things. So, I mean, we're here to kind of, the applicant has made a good effort to show how this revision would look from a farther away viewpoint. I think we've added at the end, just here's kind of how this space looks today. I took into account another building, the professional hair services building, to give you some more view on that look. But that's the space that we're looking to fill in. sorry, added here's to give you a sense of the floor area. The existing space and then the addition would be housing a break room, one exam room. The dispensary, I didn't get clarification on that. Maybe the doctor can tell me what that means. And then they have a little pre-test room. But that would be essentially the additional space for the business. Yeah. Yeah. This is in your staff report, but for the audience's purposes to see, this is the addition and how they've shown the parapet of the roof coming along all the way to the back. And then there's the front view as well. Yeah, so really, we're just here to get some feedback on the revised drawings, what the potential impact of the roof may be, and then discuss the revised space and the future effects of the separate space, and it being under the ownership of the condo association.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Kimberly. And I do want to mention, I do have public, or confirmation of the public notices being completed on this item. With that said, Commission, do you have any comments or discussion on this item? I'll begin with Commissioner Aitchison.
I like the new rendering. I am not such a big fan of the current owner's view being obstructed, the windows, even though I do think that roof line looks better. I don't think it's your microphone.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's fair to take away from the current owners. And my biggest hangup with this is the ownership of that area. If the petitioner was able to own that spot, I'd be more apt to be open to the idea, but I don't think it's fair if all parties aren't on board. That's really my big hangup with this.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Aitchison. Commissioner Gaskell.
Oh, I think everybody knows where I stand on this whole thing.
What could you reiterate just for the sake of?
No, I just don't think it's proper. I don't think it's a good use of the property. I don't think that the addition looks nice. And actually being set back that couple of feet, and I'm probably by myself in this, it just looks worse than it did before. It looks more of like a shed addition than it does part of the building.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Gaskell. Commissioner Stanton.
I don't think it's that bad. I think the improvements are a lot better than what it was. And the only thing I'd like to see is that if this, comes through, is that the gangway between the Wymans and your place, that there's an agreement on maintenance. Who's going to maintain that? Because I know that was discussed before, that's a concern. And looks great in the picture right there, so, but I would suggest that. The other thing is, just a couple questions. Dr. Brogue, did you get formal approval from either the homeowners or business owners in the building?
We had a unanimous approval from the residential units above us, and we had 3 out of 475 approval on the main level, the commercial unit.
And if by chance you don't get the recommendation from the planning commission tonight, and then you go in front of the board, and if it doesn't go in your favor that way, would you consider moving to another location in Tinley?
Now, currently, the overflow locations are being sent out 2 Orland Park locations of ours.
I'm sorry, can you speak at the, this
The
is a
lectern,
public
please,
hearing,
yes.
So, yeah, I always wanted you to speak at the mic.
So currently, the overflow patients get sent to 2 of our locations in Orland Park. We would just continue to do that then.
And then, will there, all right, once it goes through, the additions up and that, are there gonna be, would there be any additional cost to the building owners? Meaning that, would their HOAs go up, will their taxes go up? I mean,
Well, I think the question that she rose is, she'd be more comfortable if we had ownership of that property. But we really don't want to add any expense and have a appraisal redone of the entire building and everybody else's property tax go up.
exactly.
So we don't really want to raise any red flags when it comes to that. That's why we did it this way. And 3 out of the 4 commercial units were in favor of us doing this.
Okay.
And we did set the building back 2 feet. I believe that's what Mr. Manny requested. And we did put a false front, and on the front, we don't have to put it on the side. It wouldn't block anything of the window.
Right.
We could limit it to the front from the street view.
And Dr. Root, just one quick question. So the limited common element, though, is only owned by the 4 commercial owners.
Correct.
So the property that is hopefully going to, in your opinion, be developed, regardless of what the people above, it's really owned by you and those 3 other
Correct.
commercial. Okay.
Correct. But I don't want to block that window either, so if we can have just the false front on the street side, would be fine with me. I think,
Yeah, and I saw that. I
Right.
looked at that, and I
That's why
agree.
it's-
If it goes too far back, there's some windows there.
that's why it's drawn with a dotted line. If you prefer it to go all the way back, it could go up to that point.
And I do echo what Commissioner Stanton said about, I do like at least the pitch roof facade versus the flat. But with that said, I will direct some more questions from the commission, starting with Commissioner Engel.
I appreciate that you brought in the drawing where you can kind of see setback next to Wyman's. I think it gives better perspective compared to the other drawing where it's just the building. And I agree that not blocking the windows would, be beneficial to everyone there. I don't agree with your door that you want to put towards the alley now, because I feel like we kind of kept this to where if it is a common limited element, that it wouldn't be able to have an outside door to be used for someone else.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
I would prefer no door there, but there is a 3rd exit from our unit onto the patio right now. And I didn't know if that was going to be an issue, but I prefer no door there.
Okay. Yeah, because I know there was discussion about not being able to, even though it's a small unit, at some point, someone could try and use it as a
Right.
separate entity.
I
Okay.
prefer no door.
Perfect. I really have no other questions.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Engel. Commissioner Manny.
Thank you for, setting it back, and I think it does look better. It's not so prominent, at the facade, and then just having this piece, sticking out. Yeah, it looks better in my perspective. I guess, does it still meet, right now, it's still against the legacy code, and that's what I'm just debating, we don't want to, set a precedent, in your case, and then we'll have the Me Too's following, like I want to do the same thing.
Well, if those businesses are growing, I hope that you agree to help them grow too. Hope we're all in the same situation here.
But that's all my comments, though.
Okay, Commissioner Dick.
Like other members have said, I do like the new drawings. It does look better than the original proposal that we had, and the setback does help along with the Wyman, step more toward the Wyman building. It's just, my biggest problem right now is the one, like what Commissioner Manny said here, was with the precedents for now. I mean, I'm all for businesses growing and people having great business and this and that, and having even the need for that. But to, opening up this, to some other buildings, you know, I still think it looks weird having the one thing. It kind of reminds me of a shed or garage or something like that that's just kind of tacked onto the end after the thought. Yeah, that's where I'm at on this.
Okay. Commissioner Gatto.
So I agree with Commissioner Aitchison about the ownership of the property. I myself have been involved I was in a condo for 15-plus years. We had the same issue. They sold off a piece of the property. We had to go to probate court and get it back. It was the biggest pain I've ever been through in my entire life. Cost thousands of dollars for one garage unit. I am reading these First Amendment declaration from the Condo Association back in October of 2018. Not one person signed this document. Can you explain that to me? This was not filed with the Recorder of Deeds, because if it was, the signatures would be on here.
I don't really get it, as my attorney, that I don't know that.
Can you explain it?
Okay, please approach.
This was an action of the Board of Directors, and it doesn't require each individual owner to sign. The Board of Directors have the power to amend. And, you know, I'd like to also address your concern about the ownership issue. The interesting thing about condominiums is physically, you only own a percentage of the building. Now, in this case, the commercial owners have, 25% each of the land and what is the building now. Their occupancy is actually, under the law, granting them separate use for each of their spaces. So this really is a difficult concept, but I think it's my responsibility to articulate what it's all about. Any condominium building has separately assigned spaces that the owners buy. They're buying airspace and the right to do things inside the unit, like decorate, they'll own the plumbing fixtures, you know, all the hardscape inside the unit to the drywall. So this is really no different than any other condominium, and it's simply putting an addition on a building that could have had, I believe, I wasn't around in 1999 when this was done, although I was practicing law. I didn't have any involvement with this project. But at that time, I believe they could have had this space completed and part of the commercial units. They probably had a reason for not wanting to go up, maybe the added expense of the small area. But I don't think the ownership is an issue. Dr. Brugger already owns an interest in the footprint, just like he does the common elements of his unit that he occupies.
Mr. Courtney, we did get a letter from one of the tenants. My understanding from the bylaws for Park Oaks Commercial Condominium Association, and it's Article 3, Number 4, transfer limited common elements. The use of the limited common elements may be transferred between unit owners at their expense, provided that the transfer may be made only in accordance with condominium instruments and the provisions of the Act. Each transfer shall be made by an amendment to the declaration executed by all unit owners who are party to the transfer and consent to by all the units who have the right to use the limited common elements affected. And I won't read the rest, but the key language there is all. And as Commissioner Gatto said, this was the October 2018 First Amendment to the Declaration of Condominium for Park Oaks Commercial Condominium, from you, prepared to you. And even on the last page, Mr. Courtney, it says the Board of Directors of the Park Oaks Commercial Condominium and the consent of all of the owners of the condominiums, herein referred to as the association. And I do agree that with some of the commissioners, Aitchison, Commissioner Gatto, that I don't think you do have everybody in agreement, that you may have people above, but they have no invested interest. It's that one business owner, and we did receive a letter today dated August 15th, 2019, and I will read this from one of the association members who has an invested interest. To whom it may concern, I am the owner of the business condo unit at 17314 Oak Park Avenue. I am a chiropractor with a practice that operates out of the above location. I have been approached multiple times by Dr. James Rue, as well as his attorney, Thomas Courtney, in attempts to persuade me to approve an addition being built on our building's common element. I am strongly opposed to this construction taking place for several reasons. I'm concerned about parking, the appearance of the addition, and an increase in my property taxes. Parking is already limited in our shared public parking lot, which is owned by the Village of Tinley Park. I'm concerned that extra retail space will create a bigger demand for parking, which is already limited at times due to the building's upstairs residents, the businesses in the building, and especially the customers of Ed and Joe's. I'll just highlight some of the other salient points. I am also very concerned about the appearance of our building being altered. In my opinion, a 3-story building should not have a 1-story addition on one side. It is also my understanding that the Legacy Code of the Tinley Park prohibits the construction of new 1-story buildings in the downtown area of Oak Park Avenue. He further states, the proposed building addition would be placed on the common element of our building. According to our Business Condo Association bylaws, which I just read, this common element belongs to all 4 condo owners. An increase in building square footage will cause an increase in taxes. I am unwilling to be held responsible for any additional tax expense. Dr. Vrew has announced his retirement within the next year or so, and I am not interested in assuming any financial burden that he may leave me with when he leaves his practice. And then he further states, I firmly oppose the construction of any structure being built on our building's common element. And it says, thank you, Dr. Jeffrey R. Hoekstra, Chiropractic Wellness of Tinley Park. And I have a copy if you need to
Saw
see.
the letter.
Okay. But with that said, I firmly do not believe you have a
Well, let me-
consensus among.
Well, let me disagree with you, if I may.
Sure.
We're not transferring the limited common elements. If we were transferring the limited common elements, that clause you quoted requiring all the unit owners to sign would be necessary. Now, in the declaration itself, there's actually 2 provisions, I think, that establish the right to improve that. If you look at the declaration for the commercial space, in particular, if you look at 10 alterations or improvements, that actually contemplated improvements in the limited common elements. We took it a step further. We felt it was important to have the owners on board to know what was going on, and we felt that rather than having any disputes with regard to the improvements, the bylaws were amended, and it dealt specifically with adding on. But you're referring to the provision about transferring limited common elements. Dr. Rook already owns those limited common elements. He has the exclusive right. You know, he could put a wall up, if he complied with the code, he could put a wall up around those limited common elements to the exclusion of everyone else. And, you know, Mr. Hoekstra talked about added impact on parking. Well, all they're going to do is enhance their current space. They're doing nothing to hire additional employees in terms of scheduling and so on. They just wanted additional space. But, you know, there's no additional impact. I mean, the look at the building is beauty in the eye of the beholder, and of course, you know, the architect did the rendering, and he felt he did a significant change to the flat roof. And it's not my job to comment on how it looks, but it's certainly an improvement over what was presented before. And the window issue is not, there's no decrease in the amount of light would go into that unit. Yes, partially the view would be obstructed, but you know, I don't know that it has any adverse impact on the ownership. And you know, the residential owners would have an opportunity to cover it, but they unanimously consented to it. But we don't need everybody to sign the amendment. We only need the board of directors who took action on it. And so, you know, I respectfully submit that we don't need the consent of all of the owners. And under the
What we
term-
talked about 2 weeks ago, because this came up in the planning commission meeting, that we thought it'd be cleaner if you're able to purchase that property outright, develop it to whatever you want. That way, it assuages any sort of issues if down the line, some of these other 3 owners who own 25% equally change. And all of a sudden, you have a common element that they own part of, and they say, wait, we want to have a different use for that.
They can't. They can't. The condominium law assigns a limited common element permanently, unless the declaration is amended by all of the owners. And that's the clause you read. So no, they would have no right to control it. You know, that space would be owned and controlled exclusively by the adjoining unit. So I think that what you're saying would be correct if we were transferring it, but it's locked forever in the ownership of that unit. And it's no different than any other space that's occupied by an ownership.
I have one question. Why did you send this letter out in October 2018 then, if there's no bearing? What was the purpose of sending this out to all the owners to get signatures?
No, I didn't send it out to all of the owners to get signatures. I sent it out so they would know what we were doing. I wanted them to be fully informed. And I don't think there's any owners here tonight. I mean, Dr. Hoekstra had his opinion, and which is understandable, and it sort of parrots what the planning, commission has been saying. And I respect that. But on the other hand, in terms of any tax changes, I did this because I didn't want the building to be reassessed. If we transfer ownership, or we amend the floor plan and file an architectural amendment to the survey, yeah, it would cause a reassessment. What we're doing does not. And, the assessor looks at this unit now, based on the floor area. There's nothing to prevent the assessor from now increasing the floor area and increasing the assessment on this unit. But we don't want to record a new survey, because that will trigger Dr. Hoekstra's problem. It will result in an overall new assessment. But I want to, hope you understand that this is simply the use of space by enclosing it. It does nothing else.
Any commissioners wish to comment?
Yeah,
Further?
I have another comment. So from what I'm understanding, he's already sold the practice, so, to somebody else, from what I understand. So he's going to be retiring, it's going to go to this new person, and
he came up with that information.
Yeah, it's not public knowledge.
I've already heard that you've sold the practice.
From whom?
I sold the practice to Dr. Rosen.
Mm-hmm.
We partnershiped up. I'm not retiring in a year. I've got a long ways to go yet.
It's just,
Well,
it's
because the
gossip.
last time you stood up here, you told us that you were going to retire in the next couple of years, so.
Dr. Veru, can you approach the lectern to speak into the microphone? Thank you.
I'm not retiring here. I don't know where he even got that from.
Okay. Well, because I thought the last time you came up and spoke in front of us that you said you were retiring in the next couple of years too. Did anybody else hear that, or was it me? I didn't, no?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Any other commissioners have any comments?
I mean, I hope I
For the
explained the
petitioner?
concept of the limited common element.
I got one question.
Yes, Commissioner Gaskell.
You mentioned that this addition would have no impact on traffic, it would have no impact on parking, would have nothing like that there, because he's just using it for his own, basically personal use of the business. But he claims he's bringing clients in there, he wants the room to bring clients in there so he doesn't have to send them to Orland Park. So, I mean, which is it? You guys are singing two different songs here.
The parking is not a problem as long as the people taking the train, let me finish, don't park in our parking lot. And I brought that to the attention of the police department already. There's a line of cars where they're running to the parking, and they're using our parking up. They didn't seem to think it was a big deal.
That's
So,
not
I
my
mean-
question.
Well, that's my answer.
Well,
Again,
yeah, it's just.
you're answering a question that
We're-
wasn't even asked.
Ideally, we'll get more patient flow in here.
Exactly.
So
but
there will
he's
be,
claiming no.
there
That's
will
what
be
I'm
more
saying.
people parking there, but it wouldn't be an issue if the parking wasn't used up by people running to the train.
Well, I don't think, when you have a specialty use like this, they're not selling widgets, it's not a retail space where they're selling food. So the additional traffic would be minimal. How many doctors are gonna be in there?
So if one more patient comes in every hour, that's 10 people a day? Is that gonna,
I understand that. I really do understand it, but I'm just saying that he says no, you say yes. That was my question.
no, it would bring more traffic in, but not like, we're not doubling the number of spaces that we require.
I understand that.
Isn't that a good problem to have?
Well, I would think it would be, yes.
I mean, I think every business on Oak Park Avenue would want that.
I want to explain, having the extra room will also help us. We have a machine, it's an Optos machine, it's a very useful machine that we use for imagery. So what happens right now is a patient is in the exam room and they need that Optos. So then we have to then do we have to actually administer the test. And then they have to wait for the next person to come out of the exam room, and it kind of stunts the flow of our office. So, yeah, we do want to get more people in. However, we want the flow of our office to work better. When someone comes in, they don't want to be in our office for a routine eye exam longer than half hour, 45 minutes. But sometimes, because of that restriction, and because, you know, Dr. Vro, he is just a wonderful doctor. We have so many people that have such a good following for him. And I feel bad when I see him like struggling up here, but the flow works better if we have another room. We have somewhere to put them, so he's not having to take those people out of the room to then give the results of the Optos machine. It just will work so much better with flow as well. So,
You didn't state your name.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm Lisa,
And you
Lisa
are?
Lefevre, I am the manager.
Okay, I didn't say who I am either. I'm Thomas Courtney, the attorney in this matter.
I did.
So what you're saying here, before you leave, what you're saying here is you don't believe it's going to increase the traffic?
I mean, it will, I mean, we will be able to see more people. I mean, but in addition to that, I think it's going to make the flow of the office, the experience of our patients, and actually the experience for our employees better. Yeah.
Chairman, I had a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Courtney, you had mentioned the taxes, and when we would receive a building permit, that would be sent over to the county. Would they not then assess or look at that as part of an addition?
Well, here's the interesting thing about common elements. It was established many years ago that common elements are not taxed at the value of the land. They're taxed in the unit price itself. So every unit, let's say in this case, 25%, those assessments share 25% of the value of the real estate. And now in this case, the use of the limited common elements is only going to impact, I think, the value of the unit. And in this case, Brugge is paying about 30% more than the lowest assessed unit out of the 4 units. And that's an anomaly. It shouldn't happen. But the assessor does look at a property. Maybe they did it because he's got an outside wall. It's an exterior unit. I don't know why, but this will not affect other owners, though.
But the building will have to have a new assessment. There's new construction.
No, it won't be, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. This would be like any building addition. You put an addition on your house, they don't reassess it always, but in terms of the cycle, your building permits are looked at. So it would probably just increase the overall value of his unit. But there's no separate tax number for this limited common element.
But it will result in an increase in taxes.
Most likely for his unit, not for the building as a whole.
But
Now,
you
if
don't
we-
know that. You said most likely, and that's the thing is,
Well, I
you're
mean,
not a
I-
tax assessor. There was 4 buildings, and one of the comments we heard from the dissenter was that he was worried about taxes. And that's the thing is, there's no assurances unless you want to put something on paper saying, and even then, I wouldn't think that would be a wise move to do.
No, but you know, I mean, there's 2 things in life that are certain: death and taxes. And
There you go.
These unit owners are going to pay, may not be fair, but they're going to pay an assessed valuation on the fair market value as the assessor sees it of their unit. And they're taxed accordingly, and they extend it for the equalizer and the tax rate and so on. What I'm saying here, though, is this addition is like any addition. It's added onto the unit. And when the assessor comes out, they'll most likely reassess this unit, but they don't have to reassess the other units. And yes, the building permit will trigger a look at the assessed valuation. And they're going to look at the amendment also. So I would expect that this will not impact the other units. I wish I could explain better what the assessor does, but no one understands it.
That's true.
Have you had any conversation with the new assessor's office or his staff? Because, again, south suburbs are going to be reassessed within the next year.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if you've been keeping track of his reassessments of commercial property up on the north side, but they've been experiencing increases up to between 30 and 70% increase in their assessed values.
Well, I know what's going on. I have.
Okay.
I have
I would be, I actually understand his concern in this letter of the increase in taxes. It's actually, he's got that worry irrespective of whether or not this
Exactly.
goes through.
And the new concept is supposedly to assess every building at its fair market value, because if you've got a good tax lawyer, they'll knock that fair market value down based on an appraisal. And they use appraisals, of course, that they have.
Yeah, I fully understand the process, and his cap rates that he's putting on there are unreasonable to most business owners
Yeah.
that I don't think they even understand.
No,
And
but if we-
they
if
di-
we-
I don't think they should always need a lawyer to help them with their property taxes, though it's always recommended. But again, I don't think you can, with certainty at all, say it's not gonna impact their property tax.
Oh, but not of the other units, but of this one in particular.
I don't think you can say that because it's a limited common element. So again, you're gonna say that it only impacts that owner, but if they still own 25% of that limited common element, the assessor can disagree with you.
Well,
And
Yeah,
if
you know,
you
all
don't
things
have a
are-
common understanding with the assessor, and he says, you know what, it's a limited common element, every one of those owners have 25% interest, they have 25% responsibility for that tax burden.
Exactly.
not of the limited common element, of the common elements.
If this assessor disagrees with your interpretation and decides to do it that way, he can.
Well, and we have the right to.
And you have
appeal
the
it.
right to appeal, but that
Yeah.
takes time and that takes money.
Right.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
I mean, I'll finish my thoughts, because again, I was stuck 2 weeks ago. One of the biggest questions I had is, what other properties can this apply to if we went forward? And I walked around Oak Park Avenue, and just about every building can say, you know what, let's try and see if we can get this done. I mean, while we're saying right now it's limited to an entity that is owned by a condo association, it won't be that limited. I mean, again, the example of T-Hands is going to tear theirs down to be compliant with the code, and then we're going to switch back and say, no, we've changed our minds in this limited circumstance. Sends the wrong message, but B, it will start to creep into other buildings. I have this feeling. That's a good problem to have, to be honest, in terms of if the businesses in Tinley want to expand, and I want to help them, don't get me wrong, but if we do it at the expense of our downtown area to where I think there are a lot of improvements to the legacy code that need to take place anyway. But I don't think this is something that should move forward, because I think it will cause us problems down the road.
May I respond?
Yes, absolutely.
Keep in mind, this is a tiny footprint, an existing footprint.
I understand.
That I believe, as I said before, could have been part of the original building. It wasn't. So
And I think that was
when
an
you look
oversight.
at it, but when you look at the drawing, you're going to see it's an extension of the building foundation that's not improved. So this is unique. And I don't think it's going to open the floodgates to owners in the village trying to add on to their buildings. We have a unique circumstance here with the ability to develop the footprint that's already there. That's part of the building. If you look at the survey. That's all I have.
Any other commissioners with any comments at this time? And I do want to echo what Commissioner Fielder said, and Commissioner Manning mentioned it as well, and I think Commissioner Vick touched upon it. In terms of setting a precedent, there are a lot of things that came across the Planning Commission for downtown. I've mentioned this at other meetings as well, where you're going to have 5-story, 7-story buildings, and even the Legacy Code requires a 3-story building. We understand that it's a 1-story because of the windows and some limitations. I do appreciate the work you guys have put towards making it look at least a little bit more aesthetic or aesthetically pleasing. But I too hesitate in terms of setting a precedent for the downtown area. And yeah, with that, if there's any other comments from the commissioners,
You know this predates the Legacy Code. This was built in 1999, and your Legacy Code, I think, was adopted in 2000.
It's 2011, and they actually commented that this building kind of was used as an
I read the
example of,
minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, I read the minutes, but it was pre-Legacy Code.
Yep.
And I think your ordinance allows flex too in zoning and development of those buildings that were pre-Legacy Code.
any new additions still have to comply with the code. That's why you're asking for the variation.
Well, I didn't agree on those variations, but I did it nevertheless. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Courtney.
I don't know if there's any more people from the public, Chairman.
Yeah, is there any other people from the public wishing to comment? Mr. Shaw?
Good evening. I have a few points that I want to go through, but again, in the interest of time, I'll try to be brief here. However, I just want to state up front that I think staff did an excellent job of outlining what the major concerns here should be. And I'll give just my perspective sitting here listening tonight and from the earlier hearing. There's a lot of discussion here about, from my perspective, matters and topics that either are outside the purview of the Plan Commission or, quite frankly, don't matter. They're not really relevant to what you're looking at. There's more than enough that staff outlined in here that it would be a complete disservice to the community if the Plan Commission voted to recommend approval of this or even considered it. And I'll outline those. But I will tell you that going through chapter and verse, all the nuances of ownership, it's not relevant. It's interesting, sure, but it's not relevant to the legacy plan. And let's talk about the objectives of the legacy plan, separate from the legacy code, which is just how you enact and regulate the plan. But the objectives as stated in the plan are very clear. And this project, if recommended for approval, is a giant step backwards from the objectives as stated in the legacy plan. So I'm on record as stating that I think that there are a lot of fundamental flaws in the legacy code. However, the legacy plan is solid. Taxes, again, interesting, not really relevant, and certainly not one of the main points that should be discussed at length here. The points that staff outlined in here very well, I know they were covered at a previous hearing, but I think they really need to be reemphasized. Parking, I will just mention that that's also not relevant because the legacy code does not require any parking for the building itself, much less an addition here. So again, while interesting, and certainly I don't want to undersell the importance of parking for both tenants or residents as well as customers, it's a distractor. And the concept of what precedent it might set, while again, that's important, I think that the Plan Commission should be thinking more in terms of consistency versus precedent, because you're not necessarily going to be held tightly to precedent, but you should be consistent. And again, I hearken back to the legacy plan itself. With respect, and I'm just going to go through a couple of these points here. I heard the petitioner's attorney say 3 times that this addition could have been part of the original. Staff did their homework. When the legacy code, legacy plan was adopted, this building was, it did predate it, but it was cited as one of the examples of what the plan was envisioning. This staff noted here on page 4 at the bottom that at the time the Long Range Plan Commission met on this project, the patio area was noted as important to encourage outdoor dining opportunities at the building and to help offset the building from the neighboring Wyman's. Now, staff goes into great detail about building this, what it would do to sight lines, to the egress, to the alleyway. It's not lighted, it's not landscaped. Staff does an excellent job, and I would ask that all the commissioners, I'm assuming you read all the report, I would ask that you focus on the items in here that staff highlighted, because they did an excellent job. With respect to the current use and the proposed expanded use of this here, what I would say is, yes, it is owned by the Commercial Condo Association, shared space there. But the Plan Commission has to be thinking long-term, just as you would for any other potential use of any other property in the community. And by enclosing that space, you're eliminating a use that was explicitly envisioned by the Long Range Plan Commission, the predecessor to the Plan Commission, when the building was developed. And that would be some sort of patio space for a coffee shop, a restaurant, et cetera. That was explicitly envisioned when this building was approved in the first place. By enclosing this, you eliminate that for all time. Because realistically, no one's gonna come in and tear that back down. So once you enclose that, you eliminate that. Add to that, they make a very valid point of, once the additions on Tian's and the liquor store are demolished, if approved, this would represent the only one-story addition downtown. It is a giant step backwards, a giant step backwards. Harmony Plaza, North Street, that is going to be a draw to downtown. Imagine you're a visitor to downtown across the street. Sometime in the future, you have a nice little coffee shop there, a little patio. That is a very attractive space right there. It adds to downtown. By enclosing it, you remove that. It is a net negative for the community, for the downtown core. So I want to make just a couple of other points. I'm not going to go through chapter and verse, but I'm concerned from what I've heard in the last meeting and what I've heard again tonight, that there is, I don't know if it's consensus, but there's a feeling among many of the commissioners, it looks better than what I saw. It's all right. Right. The starting point should be the vision of the legacy plan. There are so many aspects of this that are counter to that and would be detrimental to the downtown in the future. I hesitate to even go into this because it presupposes that it's going to be approved and this is a detail to be worked out. But police, fire, public works, they had not had a chance to go through the details of this and chime in on it. The pitched roof, the 812 pitched roof, while I would agree, it's an improvement over the original proposal, including the 2-foot setback. It gives some variation, and some aesthetic improvement to what was proposed. I'm hesitant to go there because that makes the assumption that, oh, well, let's take this bad idea and make it look better. The pitched roof, the fire department hasn't looked at that. I would just look at this, however you do it, whether it's a parapet or whatever. I have to think that there are some egress issues and some fire code issues there. There's a point in the staff report that I think is critically important when you get into this question of ownership. And is it, a separate PIN? Is it going to be combined with the existing unit? Is it going to be looked at separately? Staff, I think rightly, looks at this as if somebody proposed to put a separate storefront in that space, it's not connected, it's not part of that business. If they said, hey, we have this little space here, we want to build an addition and have a storefront here. There's so many things wrong with that. So many things. And it would never pass. It would never fly. And that is the perspective that I think this should be considered from, independently. I will just say the legacy plan and the prior long-term plan commission in my opinion, was right in having this little patio on the side there, which I think if you go to so many downtown areas that are thriving, that's a space that potentially in the future could help activate the downtown. That's something we talk about all the time. It helps increase walkability, the visual appeal. As proposed, this is a net negative on the visual appeal, on the public safety, and on the walkability for the community, for downtown. I'm going to cut to the chase on a couple of these things here, but I do think, hopefully, you're taking it to heart.
I just have one question, if you don't mind.
With all due respect, let me finish the point here, and I'm happy to cover anything that's asked. The legacy code standards, if you look at staff comments for each of these, I just circled some points, and I'm not gonna read every single one of them here, because I think the important points are in the phrasing here. The proposed improvement does not meet the intent of the legacy plan or its principles. That right there fundamentally, I mean, I don't think you need to go any further, but I will. The improvement is not compatible. Next one down, the addition does not meet. Next one, the addition will not add additional visitors. So what that's saying right there, there's no economic benefit to the community, to downtown. But as I said, there's a lot of negative. So there's no positive for the community, but there's a negative here. And when you're looking at a variation, we're not talking about this as an entitlement where they have a right to do it. Plan Commission has to consider whether or not to grant a variation. They're not entitled to a variance. Next page, property in question, it can yield. It's already yielding. They just want to yield more. I don't blame them for that. That's smart. That's smart business. I don't blame them for being here asking, because it's smart. I just don't think that the Plan Commission should recommend approval. This is condo ownership. It's not a unique circumstance. These are the standards for a variation. The variations will alter the character of the downtown core. It will not be consistent. You don't need me here to tell you all this. I'm saying it's in the staff report. The question of taxes, ownership, all that other stuff, you don't even need to consider it. Your basis for not recommending approval is right here in the staff report. Thank you. And I'd be happy to address any questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, you mentioned about the patio and how wonderful the patio idea is, and it is. Have you seen the patio? It looks terrible. The whole thing, nobody maintains it. The village was supposed to maintain that property, and they have not been doing it. Actually, I think Wyman's, they've been taking care of that property.
That is a property maintenance issue. Should be brought up with code enforcement.
We don't, the patio is not the village, it was the
I'm going back on what
way
was discussed
back.
before, that they said that's gone back and forth, if I'm not mistaken, when,
I thought we
Yeah.
settled that 2 weeks ago. It's actually the condo association's responsibility.
and they haven't been doing it.
It's the pathway in between that
And
was.
it hasn't been, it
yeah,
hasn't been
Hasn't been done.
enforced.
Yeah.
yeah.
But to his point, that's a code enforcement issue.
So, I
that needs to
mean,
be followed up on.
Right, right,
No, I agree with you. If something
don't
doesn't
think
look
you-
good, if
when
it's
you
not
look-
maintained,
right.
something should be done about it.
It's all a
But
matter of-
it's not
all a
relevant to
matter of
this.
opinion. When you look at the renderings now, and that, you see it, I can't see anybody that could say that looks terrible. I mean, you know, you still got the walkway and
I
everything
would.
else, so it's a matter of opinion.
No, it is a matter of opinion, but it's also not consistent with the legacy plan.
That legacy
And it-
plan, it's been around for how long? 13 years? Whatever? 10,
Comprehensive
12,
plan has
12
been
years.
around
It-
for how long?
it has
And
been
it's,
faltering?
we're still using it.
Whatever, yeah, let's keep going by that, though.
With that said, Mr. Shaw, thank you for your comments. And a lot of these comments had been brought up at the workshop 4 weeks ago that went through some of the items, but I concur with some of your salient points.
Yeah, I appreciate that they were discussed and that staff raised them. Again, I'm emphasizing them because of some of the comments that I heard tonight, and I wanted to stress that you don't have to go into all these other issues. Fundamentally, it's all laid out for you right there. There's almost, I struggled to find a single positive for the community in here, and I see a lot of negative. And when you look at the standards for variation, it doesn't meet a single one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. With that, do any other commissioners have any statements to say at this time or to add to the discussion? Okay, no more audience testimony at this time? Okay. Kathy, please approach the lectern.
Wow.
Please state your name.
My name is Kathy Wyman from Wyman and Company Picture Framing next door. My husband Dan. A lot has been said tonight, and I'm just a business owner next door. I see an area that is never been utilized and was looking at this as a business person strictly. When we left here 2 weeks ago, we drove down Oak Park Avenue to really look, because I was listening to what you were saying, that, this is, maybe I was just looking at it on my viewpoint and not listening to what you were. So my husband and I, we drove, and we looked at the area, and I'm not sure if everybody up there has looked at the area, but it has never been taken care of. And I'm looking at a business trying to grow here in town and feel very fortunate for them that they are growing. And I know I'm getting business from it, and same with the pharmacy, and we all try to, send businesses to each other to stay in this town. We've been here a long time, and I just thought it was a wonderful idea for a business to expand, and it wasn't encroaching on my property, and I don't know. Listening to all the other situations here, I can understand your concerns, but I would hate to see a business leave our community who is doing good things, so.
Okay.
After what Mr. Shaw said about the security and stuff like that, he's putting lights on the outside of this to light that gangway. And we went up there, look, we see this thing every day, and we still had to go back and we had to look at it to make sure what we knew we were talking about. Between Ed and Joe's and where the hairdresser was, there's maybe 3 feet to walk through there. It's very much just a gangway. Between the shop next to Kathy and our place, the hairdresser, there's no place. I mean, it's like 2 feet. You can barely walk between them. They're still gonna have ample space to go back and view and walk and whatever, and it's gonna be well lit. We think it's gonna be better than
I think it's gonna be, you're right.
what's there now,
Right.
and, sure, you can get on the village to get out there and say, hey, you gotta do your landscaping, you gotta do this. We've been the only ones taking care of it since it's been built.
Nobody
And
quite knows.
Nobody utilized that
Right.
space. It's
Nobody
an unutilized
knows, right,
space.
right.
There's a door from his building that goes out onto that patio, because Clancy's was there at one time for serving food. They didn't use it
No,
then.
they didn't use it then.
So it's chasing a business person that's been here out of town or whatever, making them go somewhere else. I think it's bad for the planning commission. I think it's bad for Tinley Park. That's my opinion.
And I was listening to what all the other people were saying in the building, besides the one that I, didn't know about, but I listened to all the other people that live there, that I get their packages or different things in case they're not around, and they all were for it, and I was for it from, the beginning, so I'm not looking at different things that you are looking at, but I am looking at the community, and I don't think it looks like an add-on. I think it just looks like part of the building that's, wasn't being used, so.
Okay, Kathy and Dan, thank you for your comments. We
Thank you.
appreciate them. And thank you for taking initiative and cleaning up that area, Kathy. It's appreciated.
I didn't do it this year, so if you've driven by this year and looked at it, it's not doing so well.
If there are no further questions or discussion from commissioners or from the audience, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Stanton made the motion and seconded by Commissioner Fielder. At this time, staff can, okay. Roll call, please.
Engel,
What is the roll call for?
close the hearing.
To close
Close
it?
it,
No.
yeah.
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Fielder,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Chairman Gray,
Yes.
Stan, did I say Stan?
No, yes.
Okay. Motion passes. With that, staff, can you please go through the standards?
Sure. Well, we have the legacy code standards that are outlined on page 13, that it talks about how the request is in line with the legacy plan and its principles, and essentially that the proposed improvement, staff is stating, does not meet those intent, that it is not compatible, and it will alter the architectural and feel of the area, and that the resulting tenant space will be utilized by the existing staff to separate offices in a break area. While it may create a better environment, the addition will not be adding additional visitors or tax generation as proposed. The space will remain under ownership of the condo association and will not be usable by a different tenant due to lack of separate utilities, entrances, restrooms, and a small amount of space. So the addition is not really going to add much to the area as the legacy plan outlines. The standards for variation, the property cannot yield a reasonable return. The property can yield a reasonable return and meet the current regulations. The plight of the owner is due to unique circumstance. Condo ownership is not a unique circumstance, as it can be applicable to almost any building in the village. And that the variation granted will not alter the essential character of the locality. It's stating that the variation, if granted, will alter the character of the downtown core, will not be consistent with recently approved and proposed projects, and as the plan was originally proposed to provide an outdoor area. I believe those are the standards.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to request from the commission a motion to be made.
None here. I'd like to modify the motions. Instead of a motion to grant, I'd like the motion to deny.
We always do it in the affirmative, and then you have
Affirmative?
to, yeah.
All right, then, I'll make a motion to grant petitioner James Rowe on behalf of Park Oaks Commercial Condominium Association site plan approval to construct an approximately 376 square foot, one-story addition on an existing three-story Park Oaks condominium mixed-use development located at 17322 Oak Park Avenue in the downtown core zoning district, in accordance with the plans submitted and listed herein, and subject to the following conditions. A landscape plan be submitted indicated all existing and proposed landscaping, installation of a parkway tree as required by the Legacy Code, and village's streetscape plan shall be indicated on the plan. 2, the engineering plans, the engineering plans indicate placement of sidewalk at the location of the existing parkway tree in compliance with the village engineer standards for public sidewalks. C, plans are revised to install adequate lighting alongside the south side where an alley will be created in compliance with the village lighting standards. 4, plans shall be revised to indicate a 2-foot setback of the front facade along Oak Park Avenue with updated grading and site plans. And finally, all final staff review and engineering comments shall be addressed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Fielder made the motion and seconded by Commissioner Aitchison. Could we get a roll call, please?
I have one comment, sorry. The motion didn't revise the square footage with the modification, so I apologize. It's a 352 square foot.
I revised the motion to reflect that it's
Yeah.
352 square foot.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly. Does somebody second that motion? Commissioner Fielder made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Aitchison. Could we get a roll call, please?
Vic,
No.
Aitchison,
No.
Gaskell,
No.
Gatto,
No.
Manny,
No.
Engel,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
No. So motion does not pass.
No.
With that, I'd like to request staff to, or do we even need to make a motion for variations? Kimberly? For motion 2, variations?
Yep.
Okay, so if I can get a motion made by the commission at this time for motion 2?
The only change we had from the staff report was in this motion, the conditions, that we added a condition C, that the addition space would not be used for storage. So it's correct in the PowerPoint, but it's not reflected on your staff report.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly. So could I get a motion from the commission?
Make a motion to recommend that the village board grant 5 variations as listed in the August 1st, 2019 staff report to the petitioner, James Rowe, petitioner on behalf of Park Oaks Commercial Condominium Association, the property located at 17322 Oak Park Avenue in the DC zoning district in accordance with the plan submitted and listed herein, and adopt findings of fact as proposed by village staff and recommended conditions as listed in the August 1st, 2019 staff report. The variations listed here subject to the following conditions shown on the staff report.
Okay, do I get, okay, seconded by Commissioner Stanton, and the motion was made by Commissioner Engel. Could we get a roll call?
Manny,
No.
Gatto,
No.
Gaskell,
No.
Fielder,
No.
Aitchison,
No.
Vic,
No.
Stanton,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
No. Motion does not pass. So with that, we will move on to the third item.
This will
For
go to
this
the September village board
Oh,
meeting.
it's going to go in
September
front of the September
3rd, I believe.
third village board meeting, so Dr. Vru, please go there. This is just a recommending body, so go there and see what they finally decide. And thank you for your time. With that said, we'll move to item 3 on the agenda. The third item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing at the request of Leonard McHenry for annexation, rezoning, a special use permit to allow the continuation of the existing automobile service station and automobile car wash on the property located at 19420 Harlem Avenue. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Stanton made the movement, and Commissioner Gaskell seconded the motion. Could I get a roll call?
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Fielder,
Yeah.
Vic,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. I have confirmation of the public notices being completed. And I did this earlier, but if anybody came in after the meeting started, if you're not sworn in and are going to speak, please approach, when you approach the lectern, raise your right hand and I'll swear you in. Staff, can you please make your presentation at this time?
Thank you, Chairman. The subject of the public hearing is, as the chairman mentioned, is for the rezoning of the property and special use for the existing uses on the property of a service station and a car wash. Brief, quick history, this property did come before the Plan Commission the last time in April of 2018. At the conclusion of those public hearings, there was a motion to deem the property unsuitable for annexation, but that motion failed. There was a motion for rezoning to B3. That motion passed, and then there was 2 motions for the special uses, just like we're looking at this evening, and both of those failed. The project then progressed to the village board for annexation in July of 2018, and at that time, there was a motion made, and it failed 3-2, so it did not progress from there. Since that time, the business has continued to operate as it exists today. The applicant still desires to come into the village, so he has resubmitted his application. There has been no substantial changes on the property, and he has not suggested that there's going to be any different changes on the property than what he had originally proposed. So let's quickly kind of go through for those who weren't here at the workshop. Excuse me. The property is as you see it here on address of 19420 Harlem Avenue. The property includes, there it shows your contiguity to the village of Tinley Park. That's all in the shaded area. So immediately west is one single-family home, and then to the north is a commercial property. The county property surrounded to the south, and then Cook County is to the east. The zoning as it exists today, we have R2 Tinley Park to the west, B4 to the north, as well as B3 village zoning, and then the county has residential R4 to the west, and county commercial is the existing property and the property to the south of C2. The property, as it sits today, the car wash was built in 2015, I'm sorry, the gas station was built in 2015, and the car wash was built in 2017. In looking at the zoning, one of the things we look at when we annex a piece of property, it comes in the most restrictive zoning district of R1. We then have to contemplate what zoning district we want to bring that into. We had two possibilities, the B3, which is our general business district, or the B5, which is our automotive district. Through an analysis, looking at the permitted and special uses allowed in each of those districts, staff recommends we look at the B3 because they have more compatible uses with the adjacent residential than the B5, which could include some auto repair. Therefore, staff is recommending that you contemplate the zoning of B3. One of the issues that was discussed at workshop and also the last time was the issue of signs. A unique aspect of annexing a piece of property is they do have the right to bring in, especially if it's an existing use, existing structure, existing signage, they have the right to bring those in as non-conforming properties. So all the signs that exist out there right now technically have the right to come in as they exist in their current configuration. If they annex and any new signs, or if one of the signs is taken down, they obviously would have to make everything conform going forward from the point of annexation to our codes. This was a lot of discussion at the last go-around, and as a product of negotiation with Mr. McHenry, he has agreed to bring several of the signs into conformance. Going through those, there's a table in your packet, but just quickly, on the west or the east facade of the C-store, you'll see the X's, those two wall signs he's agreed to take down, as well as the manual changeable copy on the north side of the C-store. Manual changeable copy signs were deemed prohibited signs as of 2007. So the three signs that exist on the store there, they constitute 28 square feet over limit, so he is taking down those two signs. So what remains is one non-conforming manual changeable copy sign on the east facade of the C-store. Where the car wash, that's an existing sign. Again, similar to the truck depot, you have to kind of question whether this is a directional sign or whether it's an advertisement of the facility. Although, because of the recent court decisions, we don't regulate content. But this particular sign is only 6 square feet over what we allow in our code today. Staff recommended it remain. Mr. McHenry is requesting that it remain in its current configuration. The car wash signs on the north and south conform to our code, so those will not be changed. He did agree to take down the pet wash sign on the south side of the facade because it constitutes an additional sign. On the canopies, on the regular vehicle canopy signs, we have one on the east side, which is 3.31 square feet over limit. And so staff recommended that remain. Mr. McHenry is requesting that that remain as it currently exists. The other two canopy signs in the north and south, they conform to our code, so those will not change. The truck canopy sign is 2.33 square feet over limit. At the last time we did talk about, the commission at that time felt that this was more of a directional sign, but it is marginally over code. Mr. McHenry is requesting that that remain as it exists today. Regarding monuments, this monument is over by the car wash. It has a manual changeable copy sign that is not allowed. He's requesting that remain. The sign size is okay per our code. It's 10 inches too tall. Obviously, changing the height would be fairly costly, so he's requesting that that remain in its current configuration. The car wash for the entire facility that's more over at the northeast corner is 1 foot 10 inches too tall, but the changeable electronic message sign meets our code, as well as the overall side. That all meets our code. So he's requesting that that remain as it's currently configured now. The manual changeable copy, and I know there was some discussion at the workshop, concerned about setting precedent, concerned about allowing this as a prohibited sign. As I mentioned, we have them in town. We allowed them for quite a while. If you think before we had electronic message signs, this is a way we handled any kind of changeable copy. Here are pictures of other manual changeable copy signs that exist today. So they do exist. We don't allow them if they come in new. No one can get a new changeable copy, manual changeable copy sign. So I know that was a question and a concern by some of our commissioners. Regarding the landscape in the site, I think, and I mentioned before, the site is well-kept, well-maintained. I've seen improvements even since the last time we came through. He's got some annuals, hanging petunia pots and so forth on the site. And as a matter of course, I do think that he attempts to do what he can to make for a fairly green environment on the site. The issue of a buffer yard was discussed when he first came to the county for approval of his site. The county has 3 options when you look at a buffer yard between commercial property and residential, and those are listed on the left side of the table there. They can either build a berm, they can do the landscape, or they can have a wall. And then on the table in the middle, you can see what our buffer yard requires. There's only a 10-foot buffer yard that's required as part of the county. We require between 30 and 60. What exists out there now is a buffer yard of 119 feet. Going through the actual numbers, looking at the canopy requirements and shrub requirements, they do meet the integrity and the intent of the village code and exceed the county code as well. I did include some additional pictures, as part of probably the negotiations with the county, or I don't know whose decision it was, but, typically you put all the landscaping on your side of the property. And here you'll see they did put a fair amount of evergreen trees on the residential side of the wall. So they're there, obviously, for the benefit of the residents to the west of the property. There are a couple deficiencies in terms of the street trees that have passed away, have died. And as part of the annexation agreement, we've included that as a requirement that would have to be taken care of as a condition of approval of the annexation agreement. Traffic was another issue, and I believe you brought your traffic consultant, so I'm not going to steal his thunder. And basically, we went through this at the last workshop. There's about a 12 to 13% increase, anticipated increase over the additional new uses. Again, the new uses of gaming and alcohol is really not under the purview of the Plan Commission, but obviously everybody here knows that this is why Mr. McHenry wants to annex into the village. Currently, the site is functioning at a particular service level, and again, I'll let the traffic engineer speak to that. And so he will also speak to what the result will be in anticipation of the new uses. Parking, and you've all heard me do my soapbox speech about parking. It's an imperfect science, but we have to work within code. As the code is written now in extrapolating these uses, such as like the C-store has a restaurant in it, We had nothing in there for video gaming, so I just took the number of seats that he's anticipating, 5 gaming seats. But doing those calculations, you see that 42 parking stalls would be required of the uses that exist there today. He provides 52, so there is a surplus of parking. But probably more importantly is the experience that we've seen in our imperfect survey out there. And as I mentioned last time, if my statistic teacher saw me try to pass this off as a perfect survey, it is, and the traffic engineer is probably laughing behind me, but this was just something that staff did, looking at it in 2018, where at that time 18 was the highest number of parked cars out there. And then looking at it since then, I've added to this slide since we last got together. This was from the 24th of July to the 31st, with 25 being the highest number of vehicles experienced out there. And I went on to look at it through August 8th. And you can see none of those were quite that high. And again, statistically, this is not a perfect example, but if you wanted to do an average, again, very imperfect because there's a different sampling, different times, different quantities. But in 2018, there was about an average of 12.6 cars, and I thought I had that written. I apologize because I thought I wrote it down here. It's not a perfect science anyway, so I don't want to mention it, but the average has increased from 2018 to now. Oh, here it is. Okay, so it was 12.6 in 2018, and it has increased to 17.84 this year. Again, the sampling size was larger this year, different times. I think it's expected that we'll see it grow. There's also construction going on in that area, and in my experience, I think there's some construction traffic actually parking. Bottom line is he's got 52 spaces, and he's only come to about 50% occupancy with the current uses that he has out there now. Truck parking has also been documented. You could see in 2018, I think the greatest was 4. That included waiting to be fueled. And then in 2019, no greater than 2 at any given time. I think there were some questions trying to make some point of comparison of what could happen with the gaming. So we did look at 191st Street, which is another one of his facilities, has 5 seats for gaming, sells alcohol. So you can kind of get an idea of how many trucks they're experiencing. I believe there was testimony last time by Mr. McHenry that that's not his typical client. And you can see there that the traffic count over there highest was in 2018 of 20, and the most were 5 seats being occupied, but in several occasions there were less. And then some of the issues that came up through the public hearing process last time, I'm going to quickly run through these. One was public safety. Again, a concern about the additional new uses, which again is not really under the purview of the village at this time. But I did receive emails from Tinley Park's police chief last year that mentioned he had no police-related issues in Mokina, regarding Mokina. And then this year, this was the email I received, Mokina, which is again pretty much stating that the station is always very clean and well-stocked. He's mentioned that the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through does very well as far as parking goes. He does have a couple trucks from time to time, but and only a few play games. So it's not, again, not a perfect science, but I'm not hearing glaring concern from Mokina at their existing site. In your packet, you were giving the police reports. I'm not comfortable interpreting those. I've asked several times for some key on what a lot of those symbols, and I'm sorry, I just don't know. Haven't been able to get what some of them mean. But this is what I was able to receive in 2018 and then again in 2019. Property values was interesting, and it was discussed a lot last time. In your packet, you did get the spreadsheet that's very difficult to read, but one of the concerns last time is that it didn't go beyond and include that last year. Now that we've come past another year, we have an opportunity to look at the EAVs in that adjacent residential area. This is the commentary from Brad Bittenhausen, our village treasurer, and his statements are as such. The neighborhood remains very stable. Only one new sales transaction since the last analysis, and that occurred in October of 2017. There's been overall growth in the EAV in Tinley Trails over the past 4 years, and that rate of growth actually exceeded for the entire rest of the Will County portion of Tinley Park. The rate of growth in the Tinley Trails EAV is better than or in line with the counterpart in Cook County and Tinley Park overall. The only decrease in EAV noted, he believes, was a result of a tax appeal. Regarding the revenue anticipated from the site, Mr. McHenry has stated to be a little over $400,000, resulting from his projections for video gaming, alcohol, and the existing sales at the gas station, and asking Mr. Bittenhausen if he feels that these are on target, and he basically said the numbers are sound. You can read the email. He's noted that the Mokina site is one of the highest in the state as it exists now. We had some discussion last time about service station adjacency to gas stations in the rest of the village. We don't have any existing situations that way, so I don't have a way to compare that to single-family homes anyway. We have them to multifamily. Just to give you some sense of what those distances are, there's 133 feet to the truck canopy. There's 205 feet from the nearest home to the C-store. And then from the home that's actually not in the village to the south, there's 252 feet to the car wash. There was also some questions about adjacency to liquor sales and homes. You can see the table for yourself. Lenny's is, depending if you're measuring to the canopy or you're actually measuring to where the alcohol is sold, and that's the C-store, you're looking at 138 to 210 feet. And then you can see the other examples here in town, CVS Pharmacy, the corner store, Walgreens. They range from as low as 73 feet to as much as 209 feet in other areas here in town. And this kind of just gives you an example of some of those areas where we do have the sale of alcohol near a single-family home. A lot of times there's a fence that is used to provide some screening and separation of those uses. Video game adjacency, again, we don't have any gas stations with that in, but in terms of where we have video gaming here in town and how close it is, you can see the distances range from 67 feet from the Herald Viking Lodge on 175th Street to as much as 191 feet to the Nick's Barbecue on Tinley Park and Oak Park Avenue, in terms of the separation between single-family homes and video gaming. And again, you can kind of get an idea. This is Bamboo Garden, 141 feet, and there's a fence that runs along the back of that shopping center. And here's the Viking Lodge, which has the most minimal separation of 67 feet. There was some questions about the sale of alcohol in gas stations here in town. We have two. I needed to update the staff report, and speaking with the Liquor Commissioner's assistant today, I need to add one more. The 7-Eleven on 159th Street also sells liquor. So we do have two gas stations in town that do sell liquor currently. And regarding 24-hour gaming, we do not have any facilities in town that have 24-hour gaming. So I can wait till after the public hearing to handle your standards if you like.
Okay. Thank you, Paula. Commission, do you have any comments or discussion? I'll begin with Commissioner Engel.
Yeah, I'm all for this. I think it'd be great to get a new business into our town. get the benefits of it. They didn't have to make concessions on the signs, and they're willing to, so that shows willingness to work with us. And like I said before, if they're in the town, we can control any further buildings or signs that are made, in the future then.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Engel. Commissioner Manny.
Commissioner Engel, you mentioned control. I mean, we're trying to control it now, but the petitioner is telling us what he wants to change and what not to change. And I think that is not right. I stated in the past that if you want to become part of Tinley Park, conform to our codes. You were notified way back when, 2012, by the former Mayor Zabraki, let you know of our standards, signage and buffer areas, and it was within your right. You were not in Tinley Park, so you could have done whatever the ordinances were for that unincorporated area. But now you want to come into Tinley Park, and we have to go by what you want to do, and I think that is not right. As how this commission concluded last year, I think just fundamentally your this property is not suitable for annexation. Just bottom line.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Manny. Commissioner Vick.
The way I'm understanding this, and I just want to make sure from staff here really quick, what we're considering tonight is for the zoning, the B3 zoning and the annexation into, or what's the second
No,
part?
just the zoning and just the special uses.
Okay, and the special uses,
For
which
sta-
special, the.
Gas station and car wash.
And car wash, yeah. When it comes down to those 2 points, yeah, definitely, I am for this, but I do still have some reservations on the sign side of things. The manual change signs they are against what we have, but I do understand also why, as a business person, you use them because things change, what you're selling or sale or special, whatever, and it is, that's my biggest hangup is that sign. The oversized on the other ones, on the other sides, they're very nice looking signs. They are not in disrepair. They are landscaped around them very nicely. I think that part's good, but I think those manual change signs really I think it detracts a little bit from it. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vick. Commissioner Gatto.
I don't have anything.
Commissioner Stanton.
I echo Commissioner Engel's thoughts. As I said before, I think that Lenny's Gas and Wash is right for Tinley Park.
Okay. Commissioner Gaskell.
I agree with that, too. I think they'd be a good fit in Tinley Park.
Commissioner Fielder.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Aitchison.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. With that said, I do have one question for staff. I noticed in the buffer report, and I have to turn the page to get to it, and I looked at the buffer and the trees, and it does seem like that there's a good distance and a fair amount of trees. I just want to know, in terms of sake of the Tinley Park Buffer Yard D, what is the equivalency for 62 shrubs? See, I see canopy trees, it's 19 above. For shrubs, it's under. However, there's more evergreens, and I was just curious, what's the? I mean, it looks pretty lush back there.
Yeah, by code, there's no straight relationship, but if you notice what the intent of the code is, that as the buffer yard expands, less and less plant material is required. So if they had a, 30-foot buffer yard, a D can only go down to 30. It's going to be much more intensely landscaped. What exists out there now are predominantly the evergreen trees, and those carry a lot of points in the code. And that's why, and it was just my professional opinion, I'm a landscape architect, that it meets the integrity of the code more so because of its separation and the fact that they have a wall. I mean, having a solid masonry wall that's not just 6 feet, 8 feet exceeds what our code.
And on top of a 3-foot berm.
Right. Our code allows you to take all the numbers and cut it in half right off the bat if you have a solid wall.
And as staff mentioned that, and I saw this when I went out to the site, that the trees are planted on the residence side, and I think that really helps in terms of not staring at a big wall.
Visually and noise-wise, it does help absorb.
Absolutely. And I do want to echo, I saw that in the staff report, it mentioned on the 191st Avenue station that one of the words that popped out was clean. And I know when I visited the gas station off of Harlem, I found it to be clean. And to Commissioner Vic and to Vic's point about the manual changeable sign, that is something too. We've done sign codes here that I've wrestled with. Staff indicated a couple weeks ago, and I've went out and like Speedway has it, the Superwash right by my work has it. And if you've gone to the Speedway, it is not spick and span. And so in terms of, does it look clean? Does it meet, I would not want somebody to have to remove a whole monument sign when it's clean and neat, and it also conforms with some of the existing signs at gas stations. So that's not a point of contention with me on the signs. As to, I did not know the Herald Viking Lodge had gaming. I'm right by that, and I didn't notice anything, in the neighborhood going to pot because of that. But with that said, I have my comments, so at this time, if anybody would like to
Well, I'd like to
speak?
have a couple more
Oh, I'm
comments.
sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Manning.
It's just unfortunate, since the current location, or the unincorporated county, to me, it's poor planning, and they passed it like that. But then I want to just read a sentence from another letter that former Mayor Seaman wrote regarding the buffer yard. He indicates that the B3 zoning district is the village's most intense commercial zoning district, allowing automobile-dependent uses and the uses that are generally less associated with a residential neighborhood unless well-screened. We do not have a properly screened area, and we're looking to annex a very poorly planned piece of land that's adjacent to residents. And we talk about the petitioners, his business is clean and all that, but what about the concerns of the residents? We're not even thinking about residents. I think as a community, businesses and the community made up of residents, they should create a synergy, They both will work together, but in my opinion, this doesn't work at all because since back when, 2012, it's just complaints and complaints, and then we're looking to make this business busier, great, we want to try to support businesses, but this is just going to just aggravate the residents more, and they're stuck.
I mean, to that comment, how could he screen off anymore, make a better buffer yard? It's 119 feet with a 8-foot wall on a 3-foot berm with all those trees. I don't know what else he could have done.
Well, if I go back to the recommendation, which I think is correct, and again, I'm saying well-planned, back when Zabraka, he indicated they would encourage the planting at a minimum of 2 rows of evergreen trees to provide year-round screening. And we don't got that.
I mean, based on
No.
that picture, that looked like there was 2
They're
rows of
staggered.
evergreen trees.
Well screened. I was there, all, a couple days this week and last week, and,
That's
if I was a resident there, living there, I would have the same complaint. But I don't. So again, I'm for the residents here. Because, we're just looking for a person that wants to make more money,
But
and the
that-
residents,
That is already there currently right now.
right,
It's-
exactly.
It's
So-
not gonna change.
So in my opinion, I'm not
But
gonna,
if
okay, just
we-
because it's there, you know,
Right, but we
sorry.
can control it if it comes into our town.
What are we controlling?
And if he
He's telling us
changes
what
the manual
signage he wants to
copy,
do.
he wants to do a new sign,
Right,
he wants to redo the manual copy,
right.
it has to come into
Well,
code then.
Right. Well, thank you for removing the pet shop sign and the, you know, you're not in conformance with our code, bottom line. If a different, if a different person wants to put up their own gas station similar in Tinley Park, he would have to follow our code. That's it. He was notified back in 2016 or 2012 from 2 mayors. It let him know, hey, you know, these are our codes here. You know, one day you might want to be annexed. You might want that. And here we are.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, with annexations, the signs that are currently there, they don't have to change them, correct?
Right.
Is-
They don't have to
So
change
they
any of
don't
it.
have to, and he's willing to change.
Right,
So he doesn't have to
right.
as a,
Right, but
Sure,
again,
annexation.
this annexation could be written into, you know, into the document, say, change your signs. Make it
You're
match.
gonna have to speak up, we can't hear what
You
you're saying.
can't hear what you're saying.
Sorry. Well, just bottom line, you know, it could be written in documents, you know, to annex, you know, make yourself to code. That's it, you know? Why should he?
I just, we have possibly have a successful business come in and we're, I mean, nitpicking about one
Mm-hmm. No,
changeable
I'm
copy
picking
sign,
about everything, and he was
he's willing to
forewarned
change the other signs.
about that. But again, you know, I'm looking at the residents, you know, their aggravation of all these years, and it's gonna continue. That's all I have.
Any other follow-up comments from
I'll
the
just say
commissioners?
again, you know, with Mr. McHenry and how he runs his businesses, I don't see anybody else doing that. I mean, he runs circles around everyone, and he's willing to work with everyone. He's a good business, and he's has great relationships, so.
Right, I
he's
mean,
right
the
for
buffer
town.
yard, he didn't do the bare minimum, which he could have. He went
Exactly.
way above and beyond.
And as it stands now, with him not being annexed into the village, we have no right to say anything that he can and cannot do. So if he's annexed in, and the owners in that subdivision behind there are Tinley Park residents, they can come to us and let people know at the village there's issues there, and it can be approached and we can take care of it. But right now, our hands are tied. We can't do anything with that business if he is not annexed into us. Is that what I'm understanding correct?
That's
Right?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay. If everybody could speak into their microphones and speak audibly, it would be appreciated. With that said, I see there's a gentleman at the lectern, and
You asked for comments.
yes, and do you swore in earlier, sir?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and could you state your name for the
And
record?
my name is Andy Tess, and I am a resident directly of that community. Now, there's no doubt that petitioner will paint a beautiful picture using his own watercolors of what approval of his annexation will do for Tinley Park. More revenue, more policemen, et cetera. I also see he has a number of paid experts here who will also speak on his behalf. And all I ask is these experts identify themselves as to whether or not they actually live in the community. I'm sure their credentials are excellent, but do they live with us? I have no doubt that the petitioner whitewashed over the objections of every governing body that voted on this matter for the last 7 years. Everyone has voted no, with only one exception, Frankfurt, which said they neither approved or denied. They just took a middle of the road. The problem is and was that this facility should have never been built between two streets that serve as entrances to a residential community. It was deemed inappropriate and hazardous. Petitioner has said it was always supposed to be a gas station, and that's correct. It was zoned as a gas station. However, the homes were built before the gas station was. In spite of all the governmental objections and denials, and in spite of the community's objections over the last 7 years, petitioner built his truck stop under the guise of an automobile fueling facility. He now has regrets. I've heard the petitioner say, I wish I would have never bought the property. Three things should be remembered. The first rule of thumb after you've dug yourself into a hole is to stop digging. Petitioner continues to dig the hole deeper and deeper, as evidenced by the last Will County vote regarding his request for liquor and gaming, which was resoundingly rejected 21-5. This was the most lopsided vote of rejection to date. They've rejected every one of his other requests. Most of his reasons for annexations deal with profit and a total disregard for the considerations of the adjoining community. This spring, both Linda Arnold and Sandy Rennie polled about 100 homes directly adjoining the business, and the resounding response was no liquor, no gaming, no more traffic. The crime and danger, which was not supposed to happen, but did, enough is enough. Even petitioner says his facility now generates about 1,000 cars a day, more than it did before. I just heard he's going to have an expert that says it's only going to increase 12 or 13%. That represents 120 to 130 cars a day. 1,200 to 1,300 cars a day coming down primarily 194th Street. The second thing to remember is if it's too good to be true, it probably is. In 2012, petitioner told the Will County Board that approval of his request would add over $800,000 in taxes and fees to the county. Last year, his projection was $400,000 to $500,000 in taxes and fees to Tinley Park. Once again, he's holding out that carrot. Last year, an astute Tinley trustee, and I'm not sure if he had an accounting background, analyzed the numbers and found that the number to be more like $80,000 and questioned where the rest would come from. We have to remember last year petitioner hid the fact that he was interested in adding liquor and gaming to the facility. This year he's being truthful. So let's add gaming. Tinley Park's Finance Committee has reported that of the 32 gaming locations now in the village have generated through May $88,570 in revenue. Annualized, that's about $10,500 per location. So if added, that's about $90,000 in revenue. So where's the rest? Those of you who watch Shark Tank know there's an investor there called Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. He doesn't listen to projections. He only wants to know what the real numbers are. So exactly what are the real numbers? Your trustee said there were the old projections were nowhere near what he believed was going to be produced. Petitioner at the Will County Board meeting said that all the surrounding communities had no objections to his request for liquor, yet online I could not see a single mention of any adjoining village board minutes regarding this matter. The last thing to remember is we live in a very litigious society, with every governing body indicating this facility should have never been built for, amongst other reasons, including safety, with the fact that children have to walk directly in front of turning trucks to get a Slurpee or pizza. There's no other way for these kids to get to that station, by the way. They have to walk directly in front of turning trucks, either coming in or coming out. The sidewalks end there. In one case, they actually have to walk in the street where the trucks are. We all have seen school buses. They've got little arms that come out to prevent the kids from walking in front. That's because the truck drivers can't see in front of their trucks. That's, to me, is an extreme hazard. So it's not a matter of when there's going to be a major accident. It's not a matter of if, it's when there's a major accident. And I don't think, I'm not an attorney, however, I don't think it's a stretch to see the village enjoined in a lawsuit because it allowed the facility annexation so as to obtain a liquor license through annexation for the purpose of gaining tax revenue when every other governing body has said no and even this village a year ago. We ask you to remember the last Will County vote of 21-5 saying no. We ask you to stand with the community. And I just want to end with one thought. In January, the Illinois Gaming Commission changed the rules for truck stops. In order to have 5 gaming machines, all you have to do is pump 10,000 gallons a month. And I believe I heard that represents today about 4 trucks a day that have to come and park. 50,000 gallons is the new requirement for what they would call a large truck stop, which represents times 4, or at least 20 trucks a day, mostly during the working hours. Any questions? I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Good evening. I'm already sworn in from before, I believe, and I'm signed in here. So this time, in the interest of time, I will be brief. I just want to state here, 2008, I was chair of the Plan Commission, and we considered all of this in incredibly exhaustive detail, as all of you have this evening as well. Back then, I supported annexation. I voted in favor of annexation, but I voted against the approval of the special use permits. What I would say is in the last year, since this measure failed at the board level as well, I've been paying pretty close attention to this property, the other properties. And what I will tell you is, although there are a lot of things that were said this evening that I still agree with, and concerns that I have that still exist, I will say that the concerns that I had that led me to oppose the special use permits, they've largely not materialized in the last year. And in particular, there are a lot of concessions, as staff said, that were made at the time and continue to be made. I have read all of the reports and did my homework on this as well. And one of the items that stood out to me markedly was Treasurer Brad Bettenhouse's analysis of the impact on the EAV, on the property values. And what I will say is, I found most surprising that not only were the properties not negatively impacted, but in general, the analysis found that the properties are actually trending above many of the other areas of the community. Does that overcome all the concerns and objections? Possibly not. But what I will say is that while it's true that in a perfect world, this property, had it been built in Tinley Park, or I should say proposed in Tinley Park, as is at the time, it probably wouldn't have passed muster. But we do have to be pragmatic and realistic about it, in that it does exist. And while a year ago I didn't find that as a compelling argument, having watched it very closely over the past year, year and a half, I will tell you that some of the concerns at the time have faded a bit over time. And so what I will say is, I'm personally not in favor of gaming expansion. And I would rather see, at the board level, a better definition and control of gaming throughout the community. I still feel that we have a long way to go on that. As I stated earlier tonight, I'm in favor of the village's efforts to put a Racino at the Tinley Park Mental Health Center. My preference would be that we have a destination for gaming, which I think would overall impact the village in a more positive light. In reality, though, if we're successful with the Racino, satellite gaming like this, for all we know, it would wither on the vine and would not be as lucrative as it currently is. But that's all speculation. So in closing, I would just like to say that while I still have some concerns, I would recommend that the Plan Commission approve both, or recommend approval to the board of both annexation as well as the special use permits. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Wow, that really knocked us down. Camille Tessigan, and I'm a resident of Sunny Trails. And I just want to give you what I'm going to be reading from.
Sure. Thank you, Camille.
I'm reading the other side first. As in the case previously heard, the one about downtown Tinley, if you annex Lenny's into Tinley Park, you will be setting a precedent for more 24-hour gambling establishments invading Tinley Park. You are also forgetting about the Hollywood Amphitheater youngsters who may easily be able to access liquor on their way to the show. More problems. That amphitheater is just like 2.5 blocks away. Kids park by us all the time. Sandy Rennie of Tinley Trails forwarded this to me from Beth and Wayne Kendall, who are residents of Tinley Trails, who are unable to be here this evening, which I have abbreviated. It's an appendage to a letter that I didn't think was applicable right now. How Illinois bet on video gambling and lost. Blah, blah. Video gambling companies have exploited the deeply flawed legislation to reap millions of dollars in profits, while the cities and towns that bear the brunt of the social costs related to gambling receive a fraction of those proceeds. People in Illinois gambled a lot more, but most of the additional money ended up in the coffers of the companies behind video gambling. The General Assembly passed the legislation without scrutinizing the details, including the low tax rate on the machines, a 30% with 25% going to the state and 5% to local governments. It's much lower than most other states with video gambling. More often than not, these machines are found in lower income communities, which is driving me crazy. That's throwing Tinley under the bus. According to a ProPublica Illinois analysis of demographic and gaming board data, that was supposed to, I added in there myself, sorry. Devices can be found in Berwyn, but not Oak Park, Waukegan, but not Lake Forest, Harvey, but not Palos Park. In fact, as the average income level of a municipality decreases, the average number of machines increases. And this is from WBEZ 91.5 Chicago by Jason Grotto, Sandy Campempati, ProPublica, Illinois, and Dan Mihapolopoulos, WBEZ, dated January 16th, 2019. Please, listen to the community. We need your help.
Okay, thank you, Camille.
Can I just move this for a second so I can put my things down?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And if you could please state your name.
Yes, Sandra Rennie,
Okay, Sandra.
and I already swore in. We've heard some of this, but just because some of you are new, I'd like to say historically, since many of you are new, we are members of what we call a neighborhood watch group, which began here in our community in the year 2000. And our neighborhood is very diverse. It has both young people with children and retired families such as ours in Tinley and in Brookside Glen. And as you have heard, since 2012, our local Tinley and Frankfort residents have adamantly opposed these very same permits he is asking you to approve via his annexation into Tinley. Our residents at that time went door to door and received 700 residents who signed the petitions opposing this from the onset. Let me repeat, 700. We also attended the Brookside Glen Homeowners Association and overwhelmingly received their support regarding opposition to these very same special use permits. Most recently, as you heard Andy say, this year with the rough and icy weather that was taking place in our winter, our volunteers went door to door to the homes most affected by these proposals, and once again, we had over 100 residents sign our petitions, which I will bring to the village board when needed. So, on both occasions this year, his special use permits were denied. Just to give you a quick thing, he went to Will County twice, and that happened again, which is why we brought these petitions. So he was again denied. I have copies which I'll bring. So once again, our major concerns to remain the same: traffic, safety, property values, and now enforcement of the ordinances. First, note that today, the traffic into our residential streets has already escalated with just the building of this gas station, which now includes, as you've heard, the convenience store, the Dunkin' Donuts, and a car wash. For example, we face stacking of both trucks and cars entering and exiting our residential area from Harlem Avenue, from people just wanting to buy the Dunkin' Donuts and coffee on a daily basis. Thus, in the morning, when I drive my granddaughter to school, it could take approximately 4 to 5 minutes for me to make a left-hand turn onto Harlem. And here are some pictures that I brought along to just show you of what I'm describing. Here's some of the stacking that I say with the cars. Some of the trucks. School bus, trucks, cars, all intermingled here. And he said, not so many trucks, but guess what? Here's 5 trucks refueling, and this was taken last year. 5. So, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, which is why I brought it along. Also regarding traffic and our safety and our children's safety, there currently are 12 bus stops within a quarter mile of this station just from the Summit Hill K-8 elementary school. Will we then need more police protection for our children with increases in traffic? And we know from what Andy reported, there will be a very large increase in traffic if you approve this. Also, as you've previously heard, our past Tinley mayors, Mayor Zabrocki, Mayor Seaman, along with the Tinley officials, were very supportive, and that included Mayor Vandenberg, who was a trustee at the time, of our residents opposing this station and the special use permits, citing the crime and traffic issues which accompany gambling and liquor sales. This proposed increase in traffic is a major health concern as well. For example, according to the EPA in 2017's research, living and working near resources of air pollution can lead into higher exposures to air contaminants, which affect the lung function, asthma, cardiovascular disease, and premature deaths. You may have also heard previously how our residents are continually experiencing noise from trucks with air brakes on a daily basis that affect our neighbors both day and night. So you also need to consider the noise levels that the extra semi-trucks will produce during the hours of 10 and 7 a.m., which may well exceed the minimum permitted sound levels in our residential area as per the village ordinances. Second, crime and safety. Last year at our village board meeting, Mr. McHenry stated that there were quote-unquote no problems. At this station, however, according to the Will County Sheriff's report from 2016 to just 2018, there were 7 robbery thefts, 1 aggravated battery, 1 intoxication, 1 report of criminal damage, and 1 armed robbery. And this year, from January 2019, which I FOIA'd, to the present, there were also suspicious circumstances, domestic trouble, 1 theft of under 500, and 1 motor vehicle theft. And we identified recent studies which detailed facts regarding crimes in gas stations and liquor stores. A few of these basic facts include the operation hours are the strongest factor in store robberies, particularly stores open 24/7, which is what we're talking about here. Late evening to morning hours carry a risk of being targeted. Robbers commonly consider escape routes an important factor in selecting a target, and that's where the safety of our community comes in. We would be such a target. Thus, the traffic and safety issues remain. And with a liquor license at a gas station, we can all understand how crime and drinking and driving will also be impacted regarding residents and children's safety. Regarding gaming, do we really want a facility with 24/7 gaming, which ultimately affects all residents? We know what addiction's like for starters. I would stipulate that there is no need for a new liquor license or gaming, as this will not be new revenue for the Village of Tinley, but will only take away from the sales of existing businesses here, such as our VFW. Ordinances, the berm wall constructed by Leonard is a plastic fence. Although he has placed landscaping on the residential side, which I appreciate, it's a V, the way the evergreens are. There's only sparse trees on the east side where trucks refuel, allowing more noise and air pollution. I brought with you an example of what that looks like. This is the wall. This is how sparse the foliage, the trees are on the wall that is east of us, which is where all the noise comes from. And here's another one of the same thing, sparse. Yes, we have some evergreens on the other side, but they're not the way they used to be. And when Mayor Zabraki talked about it, this is the type of foliage he was talking about, with evergreens that are mature and dense and could help stop that noise and so forth. That's not there. I'm sorry, I get so getting worked up here. All right, so the signage ordinances, as we've heard, are not currently met as well. So, do you want to set a new precedence in allowing the existing signs in our village? He should conform to all Tinley rules. Lastly, I would once again argue that this Planning Commission staff did not do their due diligence regarding the issue investigating this mega station, as the majority of the homes that in particular are adjacent to the existing plastic berm fence that he built have lost property values, and ours is one of them. And that fact can be verified by the Will County Assessor's Office. So, as residents and taxpayers of this community, our property values will continue to decline. Our residents have also paid millions of dollars in taxes over the last 20 years to this village and continue to pay on a yearly basis. Overall, there is no need for more gaming or liquor, a packaged liquor in our village. Please remember that our neighborhood is like an extended family. We have spent all of our lives working and planning for a home which would be free of congestion and crime found in the larger cities. For our homes may be the largest investment most of us have ever made. So once more, as our members of this great village, we ask that you do what our Will County reps have done, our past Village of Tinley board members have done, our Frankfort Township board members have done for over the last 7 years. Do what is best for all the people you represent regarding our safety and our well-being. Let's all ensure that Tinley Park maintains its 2009 title as, quote, the best place to raise a family in the United States by voting no regarding this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Put this back.
Okay, thank you. With that said, I would like to invite the petitioner up to say a few words. If you can please identify yourself.
Thank you. My name's Cass Wendland, attorney on behalf of the petitioner. I also have with me the petitioner Len McHenry here, as well as his general counsel, other professionals, including engineering, your traffic engineer, which the commission specifically asked to be present last time, Mike Worthman from KLOA here, as well as various of his staff members. I want to address, first of all, something your former plan commissioner said when discussing the last project, and he asked whether a particular proposal met the standards as staff set them forth in their report. And he went down item by item, whether they met those and how they didn't meet them. And if you'll look on those same requirements in pages 12 through 17 of the staff report for this request, staff goes back down how this proposal meets each one of those requests. And like your former plan commissioner said, a lot of the concerns he had a year ago simply didn't materialize. In fact, a Will County judge found that the residents' concerns the residents that testified's concerns were largely unsubstantiated. They lacked any sound, articulable, factual basis, and were mostly about what might be. Again, we're dealing with a business that, for whatever, does exist now. It's operating now. It's a well-built building. It's a well-run business. It's a well-maintained business. If this village annexes this business, it will have over $400,000 a year additional tax revenue, and those are numbers that are substantiated by your own staff. They checked into them. They'll have a business, again, that's already operating well, a well-run business at this location, local police jurisdiction, police powers over zoning, property maintenance, other conditions to the property, any expansions of uses on the property that are requested in the future, much more substantial compliance with your own sign ordinance. If it's not annexed by the village, you'll still have a business already operating there with the car wash, with the truck fueling, with the drive-through restaurant, everything as it exists. You'll have the traffic that's already there. You'll have all the signs as they exist now, the way they are. No control over future development on the property or police powers, whether that be zoning, law enforcement, or otherwise on the property. You won't have it. You will not have the $400,000 a year tax revenue. That'll continue to go to Joliet still to be spent by Will County. You won't have substantial compliance with your ordinances. You won't have those police powers. This village has 30 gaming licenses or so already. You have 2 gas stations that sell packaged liquor, which is simply another product. We're not talking about a tavern. We're talking about a sold product that comes in a package. A 12-pack of Coke or a 12-pack of Bud Light when they walk out, when a fellow gets getting gas or a young lady's getting a bottle of wine and going home. That's what we're talking about. As far as crime on these, where it's present with gaming, our client has experienced the exact opposite. In his 7 locations where gaming is allowed, he's never had a robbery. People on the premises prevent that. More people on the premises prevent that, to such an extent to where he's gone to where he has locations where there is not gaming. He makes sure now that more than one person is there working at a time because more people deter such things. So in the end, you're going to have Lenny's, a well-run business, either within your control or outside of your control, with the revenue or without the revenue. We ask for your approval, and as far as questions that may come to our professionals, they're here for your answers.
Okay, thank you, Cass. And Mr. McHenry, are you going to say a few words?
Yes, how you doing? Len McHenry. Yeah, I have a couple points I'd like to make. The first thing is, I would really like to be in Tinley Park. Okay, I've lived in Tinley Park for 20 years. I live in Orland Park right now. I'm a local businessman. If things aren't right over there, you know, I'm in the neighborhood. Okay, so I'm active in the business and I take care of things. I have a little bit of a pushback on some of the comments that I think I'm entitled to, and maybe they're bad information. This location was zoned properly and built according to all the proper building permits. There was nothing that was mentioned here that it wasn't done correctly. It would have never been built, okay? It was zoned for a gas station. We built a gas station. There's a history of some special use approvals through the county. That's a whole story in itself, but everything has always been step by step. I've always believed that this is the right thing to do, and the right services to offer at this location and also other locations.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So when that subdivision was built, the residential subdivision, your property was zoned for a business gas station, basically, that,
Yes.
so when that subdivision was built, that was already zoned and could have been a gas station before you built it?
Correct. This property was owned by Gas City for quite some time, okay? I came from Gas City, okay? So I knew of the property, and then I went back to the bank that took the property back. But it was controlled by petroleum companies for quite some time. Okay. Just a comment about, I thought what I heard was it was $80,000 for this year for Tinley Park for gaming. I just looked on my phone because I was looking at it earlier of how many licenses there are. It was 37,000 for the month of July, so if we just run that out for 7 months, it's 259,000, not 80,000. You know, and all those signatures everybody had. When we were turned down in the county one time, I started getting some signatures. I had 3,000 signatures that our customers supported liquor in the car wash. And after a while, I just threw them all in the garbage. I didn't ask people to come here tonight and support this and to make a bigger show about it than it is. And how many problems have we had since we were here a year ago? I don't think you guys have heard of any. A couple other things. Again, 158,000 people live within 5 miles of this location. I believe we're good neighbors, and if there's something that we're not doing right or something's out of whack, we're always there to be sure that things are taken care of. Packaged liquor, yeah, it's a lot of requests for that. People just expect that today. The security that comes from video gaming is real important to us. People are around. The two big things are security, and we pay people better, we hire more people, easier way to operate. You're not looking for cost-cutting ideas, but the security is a big thing to us. And yeah, we have 7 gaming licenses and 9 liquor licenses, and we haven't had any issues with that. So thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McHenry. I do have a question for the engineer, the traffic study engineer from KLOA, if they don't mind approaching the lectern. And you were sworn in earlier?
I was, thank you.
Okay, and if you can just state your name?
Michael Worthman, principal with the firm of Koenig, Lindgren, O'Hara, Buna, Inc., KLOA.
Okay, Michael. So could you tell us a little bit of the traffic study? What did that entail? And what did you look at specifically?
So let me step back for a second and tell you a little bit about the site and some of the characteristics of the site that helps to minimize the impact of the fuel center. First of all, I think someone's trying to get to an aerial or a site plan. Keep on going.
Go back to the chart. You want to go to an aerial?
If you got an aerial, it's probably better. I think you just had one. One of the important aspects of this site is that there's 4 access drives on 3 different roads. And that's important in that it provides the site with excellent flexibility and helps to distribute the traffic over different access drives in different roadways, which minimizes the impact. Excuse me. The second important fact is when the station was built, several important roadway improvements were also provided as part of the development. The first was 194th Avenue was widened. Before it, it just had one inbound lane and one outbound lane. It was widened to provide a separate left turn lane and a separate right turn lane at Harlem Avenue, pretty much doubling the capacity, but more importantly, the right turn vehicle didn't have to wait for that left turn vehicle that was waiting to go out. The second important improvement was a separate right turn lane was provided on Harlem Avenue, serving that right in, right out access drive. So a number of improvements were installed to help minimize that impact on the roadway system. We came out, we've been working on this project for a number of years. I've been out a number of times observing. We've counted the operation a number of times. The last time was in March of last year. What you see now was built. The car wash was built. The Dunkin' Donuts was built. Everything was in. Some of the facts we found from that was that during the peak hours, the morning peak hour and the evening when you have the highest volumes of traffic, 97 to 98% of the traffic was passenger vehicles. Only about 2 to 3% was truck traffic. Looking back at some of the data Len gave me, on average, the station had about 53 truck trips per day. So that'd be 53 in, 53 out over a 24-hour period. So you can see that the majority of the traffic is passenger traffic. The other interesting fact was that about 88% of the traffic was generated from Harlem Avenue. So 88% of the traffic was coming off of Harlem Avenue. The other 12% was coming to and from the neighborhood. Those were most likely residents that were stopping for gas to or from or on their way home. So mostly passenger vehicles. There are trucks, don't get me wrong, but the majority of it is passenger vehicles. And the majority of the traffic is coming in and out of Harlem Avenue. So that's sort of the existing conditions. As you've heard, with the annexation, the applicant is asking for a liquor license in the 5 gaming positions. So we looked at what the incremental increase in traffic would be. Len has indicated that the liquor would increase revenue maybe by 20 to 25%. However, you got to understand that doesn't translate into all new trips. A lot of this liquor will be sold to customers that are already at the gas station, what we call a multi-purpose trip. You see it a lot when someone gets gas and they get a car wash. What's going to happen now is they're going to get gas. I think as Cass said, they're going to pick up a bottle of wine to take home with them. So instead of making 2 trips to the gas station and the liquor store, they can do everything here. The other is the gaming positions. We're talking 5 gaming positions. Len gave me some information on some of his other stores, and we also have done surveys of gaming, and they don't generate a significant volume of traffic. What you see up here on the chart is, if you go to one more chart. So this 10 to 12%, keep on going. This was assuming that it's all new traffic. So we took the liquor and increased that by 20%, and then we showed you what the gaming positions would be. But this is assuming that none of it is existing customers. In fact, and I can't tell you, but I think we can all understand that a good portion of this is going to be traffic from the existing customers. So this 10 to 12%, what we're showing up there, is a worst-case scenario. I would expect that to be half or even less additional increase in traffic on the roadway system. But even at 25 trips, that's 1 trip every 2 minutes. That's distributed over 4 access drives and 3 different roads. So you can see that the incremental increase in traffic is pretty low, pretty nominal, given what's going on out there. The other important fact is gas stations, upwards of 75 to 80% of the traffic they generate is already on the roadway system. They're stopping there on their way to work, on their way home from work. It's what we call pass-by traffic. Lastly, we looked at how the intersections are operating. Like I said, I've been out there a number of times. In general, the roadways have sufficient capacity to accommodate the traffic. We all know that it's difficult to get out onto Harlem Avenue during the peak periods, particularly the left turn. And I've spent a lot of time looking at 194th Street with Harlem Avenue. As we all know, it's under stop sign control, and as I said, it's got the 2 outbound lanes. And there is time, and the lady is 100% right, it can take a little longer to get out to make that left turn onto Harlem Avenue. But this is common along any high-volume roadway that's under stop sign control. I've been out there a number of times. The average queue is maybe 2 to 3 vehicles. I've seen 5 vehicles there. However, they typically clear pretty quickly. Once there's a gap in traffic, they all get out, and then, there's no cars, and maybe 1 or 2 line up, and they get out again. What's helping the situation is the traffic signals that you have both north and south of you. You got Oak Park Avenue and 191st, to the north, and you got Benton and Vollmer, which that stops the traffic and provides gap in traffic. So in the end, the incremental increase in traffic is going to be very low. This traffic's already out there. 194th does have some delay. It's not excessive delay, and it's what you find at many locations up and down Harlem Avenue and at any location. I think that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Okay, Michael, thank you. Is there any questions from the commissioners at this time? Seeing none?
Question of the
Oh,
traffic
sure,
engineer.
Kimberly.
If the distance between the most existing light on the north, it's, in the future, if this something was developed on the opposite side of Harlem, do you think a lighted intersection could be warranted?
It's a great question, and IDOT has pretty tough standards when it comes to putting
Yeah.
another signal in. You're
probably-
not going to get a signal at this location until the parcel to the east develops,
Develops,
and it
right.
depends what that is and where it goes. But I believe, and don't hold me to this, you're about 1,000 feet to Oak Park Avenue. IDOT typically likes a 1/4 mile, which is 1320, but it's in the realm of acceptability, and it depends what goes in on that other side. But it's a great question. Len's asked me that question a lot.
Okay, good question, Kimberly.
Yeah,
and-
additional
Oh, sure, Commissioner Vick.
I'm just curious, because we have talked about, residents have mentioned the safety part of this. Within the traffic study at all, or when looking at that intersection, was it looked at all with incidents of traffic wrecks, those kind of things, within that intersection of 194th and Harlem?
Yeah, we've looked back a couple years. Most years, there's 1 or 2 accidents. 2017, I think there was 7 or 8 accidents. I don't know why it spiked then. But I believe there was only 1 injury accident. There've been no fatalities. A lot of them were rear ends, as people thought someone was pulling out and they didn't, and those sort of things. But we did take a look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Very thorough. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody else wanting to testify, or a gentleman's coming.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Petrowski, and I have been sworn in.
Okay, thanks, Jerry.
One of the things I want to talk about with the traffic, and it is horribly understated here, is that, yes, you may have the extra lane on 194th to make that left-hand turn, but in the morning, how many people want to make that left-hand turn? 195th Street, also known as Lakeside Drive. We have the same issue, and especially with the trucks. Because what happens is that they come in from the 194th Street side, and then they rotate out to 195th Street. And I have spent many days for 5 minutes trying to make a left-hand turn onto Harlem Avenue. This happens also outside of rush hour traffic. There's nothing worse than you have a number of the, there's a car auctioneer down Harlem Avenue in Matson, and they have several of the car carriers come through. They'll gas up over there and they'll come out, and then they try to make that left. And you get hung up for a long period of time. So it's a lot bigger issue than what a lot of people want to talk about. And when some of those trucks come out, they'll take up more than 1 lane. when they're trying to make those turns. So you can't even make the right-hand turn.
Okay, thank you,
Right.
Jerry. Yeah.
One other comment I'd like to make. Lenny has made a lot of claims through the years. Starting back in 2012, he stated, you know, if I can't get the car wash and I can't get liquor, I'll never build the gas station. Built it anyway. When he was going after the car wash a couple of years back, he stated at one of the meetings, you'll get so much in property taxes that you'll be able to reopen Lincoln Way North. You know, that hasn't happened either. The residents have not been happy with Lenny being our neighbor. The amount of noise that comes out of there really does exceed a lot of the noise standards. You guys put a lid on the theater. I mean, they're not allowed to play acts, I think it is, what, after 10:30? I'm not exactly the exact time.
I thought it was 11 PM.
11, but whatever it is. That's never been an issue for us. What always has been an issue is that our trucks and people coming in with the large boom boxes in their vehicles and stuff. And that stuff goes on all day and all night. So,
I have a question,
everything-
sir, just out of curiosity. Are you a resident of Village of Tinley?
yes.
Or Franklin?
Of Chenley, no, I am not.
Okay, just
Yeah,
wondering.
no, but my property abuts this. I'm literally right back of the car wash.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you very much.
If there's no further questions or discussion, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Before you do that, I'd
Sure.
like to make one comment here.
Sure.
I just want to make sure that the commissioners here, and I'm sure you all do, but I just want to put this back out there, is that what we're looking to approve tonight has nothing to do with the gambling, has nothing to do with the liquor sales. It has to do with the gas station portion of it and the car wash as part of the Village of Tinley Park. So as we're going through these motions, I just want everybody to make sure that's what we're focusing on. It's for zoning to take care of and the board to take care of the other two issues, as far as I'm aware, right? For the-
Handling zoning and 2 special uses.
Yeah, so.
Well stated, Commissioner Vick.
Great point.
Yes, Sandra?
What we've understood all these years is that if he annexes into Tinley, and if in fact the liquor license is approved, he could go straight to the state of Illinois to get the gaming. This has been his thing that he's been trying to get through for the last, 7 years. So we think of our children that go for slushies like we talked about, and the gaming that's there. You go to a casino, there's a security guard there. So we really need to, if this was your house and your grandchildren and your children, how would you vote? Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Seeing no other comments or discussions, do I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Engel made the motion, and Commissioner Gatto seconded the motion to close the public hearing. Could I get a roll call?
Stanton,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Manning,
No.
no?
To
Oh,
close?
I'm
the-
sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
So is it yes?
Yeah, close it.
Gatto,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Fielder,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Staff, could you please go through the standards?
Yes. I'm watching the time, so
Mm-hmm.
they are all published in the report, which is on our website, and you all have them in front of you, so I'm going to give you the cliff notes. These are rezoning standards. We use the LaSalle factors as our guide for this. The first being the existing uses and zoning of nearby property. They want us to consider that. Our comprehensive plan notes this for commercial, and to the property to the north is Tinley Park Commercial B4 as well as B3, and then Will County C2 is to the south. Residential is to the west, Will County, and R2 Tinley Park. This is an existing situation. Therefore, staff is stating that it is consistent with the zoning in the area and consistent with our comprehensive plan. The extent to which property values are diminished by the particular zoning, there's been various testimony given this evening, including that from our village treasurer that noted that the EAV of the surrounding properties is stable and actually performs higher than in some other areas in our community. The extent to which the destruction of property values of the complaining party benefits the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. Destruction of property value has not been proven on this property, and again, this is an existing use which has estimated income of over $400,000 a year from the anticipated uses of the property. The relative gain to the public is compared to the hardship. Again, by annexing, we bring in local control through public safety as well as zoning, and this will all be done through the annexation negotiation process. These uses would continue to exist regardless of the annexation of the property, the existing uses. The suitability of the property for zone purposes, this property is located adjacent to a 4-lane arterial roadway with average daily traffic of over 26,000. We have a traffic study that has been shown that it exists at acceptable service levels at the intersections. And again, the comprehensive plan identifies this for commercial. The length of time that the property has been vacant as zoned, again, this is irrelevant because it's currently developed as most of the properties in the immediate area. The public need for the proposed use, an express need for gas stations, we certainly continue to see. We actually have a couple gas stations on the docket right now, and the anticipated revenue of $400,000 annually from the projected uses on the property. The thoroughness with which the property has planned and zoned for its land use. The comprehensive plan certainly went through its course of study, certainly needs to be updated, and the B3, which is the recommended zoning, has provided for these uses, car wash and the service station as special uses. Would you like me to go through the standards for the special use now?
Yes, please.
All right. The special use, obviously, we've gone through these with other projects. You have the opportunity to establish any conditions with the special use that you feel could mitigate any perceived impact, and you just want to make sure that any of those conditions have a nexus to the perceived impact that you are concerned about. There's been various studies, we've presented them this evening, regarding public safety, traffic, signs, parking, and landscaping that have all provided information that help to mitigate any perceived negative impact on adjacent uses. Going through the standards, the first being that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special use will not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, and welfare. We've discussed this with respect to the existing property was developed in conformance with Will County and actually exceeded Will County standards in various areas, including its buffer yard. Property evaluation, EAV evaluation showed a stable impact on the adjacent property and not a detrimental impact on adjacent properties. Second standard being that the special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate facility. Again, the special use that we're considering, they're both existing uses. There have been certain mitigating impacts that we have discussed previously. Bringing the property into control by the village at Tinley Park certainly provides additional opportunities to mitigate any current or future impacts that could result from those special uses. The traffic engineer also expressed what the traffic patterns were and the existing conditions of traffic, and has stated professionally that he feels that the anticipated new uses would have a negligible impact on the traffic conditions that exist there today. Third, that the establishment of the special use will not impede the normal and orderly development in the surrounding area. The majority of the area is developed. However, our comprehensive plan does identify commercial along Harlem, which is customary for four-lane arterial roadway with those average daily traffic counts. Adequate utilities, including access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities that have been provided on the property. Again, access, 4 different accesses to access ways adjacent to the properties, the arterial roadway. They meet all the stormwater requirements. Stormwater detention has been provided. So current conditions as they exist today have been adequately provided for with respect to traffic or drainage. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress or egress to the site. Again, existing uses, we've had the traffic study mentioned. The service station has been operating since 2015, and the car wash since 2017. That the special use in all other respects conforms to the applicable regulations of the district in which it is located. No, it doesn't. We've talked about the nonconformity of the signs. We have stated that those can be annexed, and as they exist now, there's been some concessions made by the petitioner. And any other building inspections, we've done another building inspection this year. Actually, the one we did last year and identified any deficiencies, and we had negotiated as part of the annexation agreement that if he were to be annexed, they would have had to been brought into compliance. We found when we went out there this year that he already brought those into compliance. Any remaining items would be identified and be a part of the annexation agreement, and there'd be an identified schedule when anything would be brought into compliance. The extent to which the special use contributes directly or indirectly to the economic welfare of the village, we've mentioned again that over $400,000 is anticipated for the new uses that he is requesting, not only the existing uses, but the gaming and the alcohol as well.
Thank you, Paula. At this time, I'd like to request a motion for approval from the Plan Commissioners.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Stanton. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gatto. Roll call, please. Or, I'm sorry, can you make the motion?
What was that vote?
Motion number 1. I apologize.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner Leonard McHenry on behalf of Lenny's Food and Fuel Harlem Avenue LLC rezoning map amendment of the property located at 19420 Harlem Avenue upon annexation to B3, general business and commercial, and adopt findings of fact submitted by the applicant and the findings of fact proposed by the village staff and the planning commission at this meeting.
Could I get a second? Seconded Commissioner Fielder, motion made by Commissioner Gatto. And just 1 second. and we'll-
Sorry.
No, you're fine, Barbara.
We're supposed to keep moving this, and I fell down on the job. Wish we could get that fixed.
Okay, thank you. With that, Barbara, when you get a chance, if we can get a motion, or can we get a roll call for motion number 1?
Gatto was first and
Fielder.
And Fielder was second, yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
No.
Gatto,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Fielder,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, motion approved. At this time, could I get a motion for approval from the Plan Commissioner, in this case, motion number 2?
I'll make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner Lenny McHenry on behalf of Lenny's Food and Fuel on Harlem Avenue LLC, property located at 19420 Harlem Avenue, a special use for a service station, and adopt findings of fact submitted by the applicant and the findings of fact proposed by village staff and the plan commission at this meeting, consistent with the submitted plans with the following conditions that are listed here on the agenda.
Excellent. Can I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Stanton, and the motion made by Commissioner Fielder. Could I get a roll call for motion 2?
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
No.
Gatto,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Fielder,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Motion carries. With that, if I could request a motion for approval from the Plan Commissioners for motion number 3 on this agenda item.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner, Leonard McHenry, on behalf of Lenny's Food and Fuel, Harlem Avenue LLC, property located at 19420 Harlem Avenue, special use for a car wash, and adopt findings of fact submitted by the applicant and findings of fact proposed by village staff and the Plan Commission at this meeting consistent with the submitted plans.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Aitchison, and the motion made by Commissioner Engel. Could we get a roll call for motion number 3?
Stanton,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
No.
Gatto,
Yes.
Gaskell,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Fielder,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. We can, do we have time to, staff, do we have time to move on to item 4?
If you'd like, I could run through it really quick.
Let's do it.
It's really a housekeeping matter.
Oh, I'm sorry. So with that, Mr. McHenry, since the item's been approved, it will be discussed at the village board meeting on,
I think September 3rd. I don't know how the hearing notice is going.
For the annexation.
so tentatively September 3rd, just look for the notice. You will be informed. Please be present, for sure. Okay, thank you for your time. No. With that, staff, if you can, we'll go to item 4. The 4th item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing for a text amendment to the zoning code regarding fees. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Fielder, do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Engel, could I get a roll call?
You can say all aye.
Aye. Everybody just say aye.
Voice call.
No.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
All those to open the meeting, aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Opposed, nay? Okay. I have confirmation of the public notices being completed, and staff, can you please make your presentation?
Sure, great. So we're in the process of doing a comprehensive building code update, and while we're doing that, we're recognizing that there's other things that need to be adjusted specifically in the zoning code that we'd like to bring over into another section of a code, and that is our fees. We recognize our fees are throughout various codes. We'd like to have one comprehensive section in the municipal code that brings all fees in one section, makes it easier to review, easier to update. So essentially what we're asking is to, any fees currently referenced in the zoning code, we want to take them out and we're gonna put them in this comprehensive fee section. There will be some additional fees potentially added that will be more discussed at the village board level. That would be their purview, but for information purposes, we did look at some of our fees and recognize that we needed to increase those slightly. And one of those would be a particular interest potentially to this board is our variance fee for residential is currently $150. And looking at other communities and the cost that's involved, we are looking to just increase that to $250. And then if there's multiple variations, a part of a request, there would be an additional cost for $75 for that. So, and then with the annexations, we recognized and saw that we currently do not charge a fee, so we'd be looking to the village board to look at creating a fee for that, and then making some other adjustments to some of our zoning fees for special use and rezoning would be slightly increased, just to reflect kind of what staff time and what the reality of, processing some of these things are. So that's more of a village board discussion, but just for your guys' knowledge, some fees will be slightly increased that do come to this board. So with that, this is just really a clerical thing right now, but because it's in the zoning code and we're removing it, we have to have a public hearing because it's a text amendment. And we'd like to then bring this all together in one comprehensive building code update, and then a municipal fee code section would be created as well.
Okay.
A couple questions just for clarity.
Yeah,
purposes.
absolutely, for sure.
So, is the envisioned structure basically, you'll have a zoning section to this fee code? Is it zoning and then, you know, special use annexation, it's all just listed under that section? So it's pretty easy to follow.
Yeah, what we'd like to do is in the zoning code, if we'll have a says fee, you'll see C chapter, and we'll refer you to the proper
Section.
section that we're
that
gonna
you have to
create
go to.
all fees in one spot.
And I'm assuming if that happens, there's probably gonna be a hyperlink, so that way if they're looking at it online, it's boom, right there.
Yep.
Secondly, in terms of the proposed fees, I'm looking at the differences. Apparently, we're pretty darn competitive since we have low fees, but,
Mhm.
we're not gonna, kill ourselves in terms of, not be as attractive because our fee levels, instead of being, you know, in the norm with surrounding communities, are we still a little bit lower?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure competitively, we're still
Mhm.
more competitive than our neighbors.
Just for clarification, your fees are based off attributable cost to the village, right? It's not a marketplace to determine how we have the lowest fees for different things. It's to help the village recoup the administrative cost to
Right.
processing. all
And we
these
never really
applications.
fully always recoup, but we
Correct.
try to, you know, take that into account.
So, hopefully, in taking into account, it's like, as long as they're not excessive compared to other surrounding areas, because if they're
Right.
a little bit lower, it's like, I don't want us to give us a competitive disadvantage in any way.
I can say right now, what we're proposing is not going to be excessive of what our neighboring communities. Some of the things we recognize, though, we weren't charging at all, and
Yeah.
there
Oh.
really should have been some
Correct.
I
some
see, I
fees.
saw some of that, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Site plan, annexation, there's a lot of time involved, so.
I appreciate that, it's,
Mhm.
I'm on board with it, so.
And just for clarification on the elimination of the new development approval, I know it said it was not utilized. I just was, so, why, was it just a poorly defined entity, or it just, there was no need for that type
We
of
found
development?
that it just was never used, because it's buried in the subdivision code, I believe, yeah. It's all in the subdivision code, and everything that we could research, it was never really being applied. So, we figured if it's not being applied, then we looked into it, and we,
So it's not something like 2 years from now, there'll be a weird
no.
needle in a haystack case that comes up, and you're like, why did we
And
take
some
that
of that
out?
was written because we were reliant on consultants for engineering. Now that we have an in-house engineer, some of those fees really are necessary.
Okay, excellent. Kimberly, are there any other comments or discussion from the commissioners? Commissioner Stanton, no? Commissioner Gaskell?
No.
Commissioner Fielder?
No.
Commissioner Aitchison? Commissioner Gatto?
No.
Commissioner Vick?
No.
Commissioner Manny?
No.
Commissioner Engel?
None.
Okay, and I have no further comments, so with that, staff, if you can, well, you already, if you can go through the,
There's no standards for a text amendment.
okay, fair enough. So, if there are no further questions or discussion, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, moved by Fielder and seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. And there is no standard to go over. So at this, can I request a motion for approval from the plan commissioners at this time?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board approve text amendments to section 3-0-6 2-C, section 9, .b.2, and section 10 of the Village of Tinley Park zoning ordinance as indicated in the staff's most recent staff report dated August 15th, 2019. Proposed text amendments increase the number of planning and zoning related fees and move all fees into a comprehensive fee schedule located in the Village of Tinley Park's Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Fielder, seconded by Commissioner Engel.
Letters and
Could I get a roll call, please?
Stanton?
Yes.
Engel?
Yes.
Manny?
Yes.
Gatto?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Vic?
Yes.
Chairman Gray?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. And I guess the fifth item is being requested to be moved, the text amendment for the masonry requirements?
Yeah, we're still working on it. We're working it still in conjunction with the building code update, but for now, we're just gonna, we'll renotice it when we bring everything forward. So we're just asking it to be removed off, the agenda.
Is there a particular hiccup?
Staff timing, we're still working with our consultants with the building code update and stuff, so.
I just didn't know if there was a specific log jam or if it's just more time consuming than anticipated.
Just, we've been working on a lot of big projects, so some of these text amendments are great, but they have to take a back step sometimes, so.
That's a good problem then, it sounds like.
We need to make a formal,
Mason, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, plus, we really want to get, it, we really want to time it all together. We're in the midst of getting our building code updated. That's a humongous
Yep,
project.
agreed.
So we're going to tie all these things together, so when we take it up to the board, they will have them all adopted in the same meeting.
okay, excellent. So at this time, staff, do you have anything to present for the good of the order?
No, I think we can call it a night.
Okay.
I hope we don't lose lights.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to close
So moved.
this meeting?
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Fielder, seconded by Commissioner Aitchison. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carried. Okay. Meeting adjourned.